Here.
Mayor Dedina.
Here. All right, and now it is my pleasure to announce that this evening we're starting a new tradition of having people from the community help us with the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight we'll have members of the Boys and Girls Club lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, so please rise as they come towards and do that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then I'd like to ask the council if we could come down and take a photo and give them certificates. Hold on, kids. We're going to come down and give you guys certificates and take a photo with you.
Thank you. I have the honor of reading the plaques. The Certificate of Appreciation. Thank you all very much for being here, helping with our Pledge of Allegiance. The certificate states, and I'm just going to read it one time, but we'll read all of the names. Haley Willard, Hayden Willard, and Corey Vinson. And your name is? Ariana Corona. I would like to read your certificates to you. These are presented to each one of you, Boys and Girls Club of the South County. The City of Imperial Beach hereby commends with appreciation your presentation of the Pledge of Allegiance at the City Council special meeting on December 10th, 2014. So thank you all very much. Great job. Okay.
I just wanted to, that'll be a new tradition that we do, and we'll work with the council to identify a list of organizations that we can invite here, and schools, etc. But thank you so much. And I joined the club in 1971. Still, my kids were members, and we're donors, so it means a lot to me to have them here. It's a great organization. Do we have any agenda changes?
None from staff.
No, sir, I have none.
And now we have the time where we do the mayor council announcements or community announcements or reports on assignments and committees. Do any council members like to give on the reports?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to put the community on alert that Santa Claus and his elves have come to Imperial Beach, and mysteriously Christmas wreaths have been, I've noticed them up on Seacoast Drive. I hope you all enjoy them, and who put them up there is yet to be determined.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor and Council, last night I attended always the serious one, darn it, I hate to follow you. I attended a workshop that the City of San Diego put on concerning its Pure Water program, which is the recycling to drinking water program, right down on at the community center on Saturn. And the purpose of this workshop was to scope, get comments for the scoping of the environmental impact statement that the city is going to have to file in connection with this multi-billion-dollar effort to create a secure source of drinking water for San Diego, the entire county. And one of the offshoots of this is they're going to be expanding water recycling and water treatment activity in the center of the city, the northern part of San Diego, and in the South Bay. One of the consequences that we're very concerned about, and this council has expressed concerns both in its resolution in support of pure water and through me as our representative on the Metro Wastewater Commission, is that we don't want to see any increase in the discharge of wastewater, secondary treated wastewater out of the South Bay ocean outfall to the south of Imperial Beach. So I made the comments last night that Imperial Beach stands by its resolution in support of pure water, but also in support of no additional discharge out of the South Bay ocean outfall. And the reason being that Imperial Beach should be treated as an equal to San Diego, Coronado, and the other oceanfront communities, and not as the dumping ground for additional wastewater. So I just wanted to pass that on to the council members, that is consistent with the position we voted on, and I articulated it last night. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Spriggs. Are there any other comments or reports from council members?
Just real quick, I did just segue off of Mrs. Bragg's Christmas Comes to IB last weekend. What a great event. Tons of kids there. And what I really enjoyed about it, number one, Santa did look a little thinner. He looked like he was in shape. And secondly, I saw so many people walking and riding their bikes there. And it just goes to show you the walkability and rideability that Imperial Beach is. Instead of driving there, people were walking and enjoying it. Bike racks were stuffed full. Everybody looked like they had a good time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or announcements? And now we'll move on to the public comment period. Is there anybody here that would, Madam Clerk, do you have any speaker slips?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anybody here that would like to speak? Great. Okay, we'll move on to presentations 1.1, which is presentation on Port District activities by Port Commissioner Malcolm. And I would like to invite Port Commissioner Dan Malcolm to the podium. He'll be giving us a presentation on Port District activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Dedina. And before I start, I'm going to just go off script right away. And you know, I've been in this chamber, you know, many times, and I don't think I've ever seen the kind of energy, the people. You know, this is truly IB, you know, coming out for an event, the changing of the guard, and you know, it felt good to be a citizen of the city. It showed, you know, how special Imperial Beach really is. There was an energy here, and you know, I'm just hopeful that we get more community participation here and this continues. But it was just something extraordinary, and I wanted to make mention of it. And I'm sure, you know, all the positive energy out there, they're looking forward to some great governance, continued great governance here behind the dais. So appreciate that. And I just also want to congratulate Mayor Dedina. Mayor, congratulations. Great opening speech. Very interesting. I learned some things. I told you out there, I learned some things about you that I didn't know. Also want to congratulate you, Councilmember Spriggs, Councilmember Bragg. Looking forward to a great council. And now I'm going to start talking about port stuff. So it's been a busy year under Chairman Nelson and the Board of Port Commissioners, and very busy, lots of activities and lots of things here in IB, lots of things around the Tidelands that we've done. And I want to make mention before I even start that January 13th, I will be sworn in as the next chair of the Port Commission. All of you are invited, and I'm hoping all of you will come. We'll have a table for you right up front. And for the first time in the history of the Port of San Diego, the chairman is going to be sworn in Imperial Beach, in a facility we have here in our town. As everyone knows, our wonderful, beautiful hotel in town. So that'll be a nice tradition that I hope continues for port commissioners to come after me. So this year in Imperial Beach, had a major deck refurbishment, $420,000 refurbishment of the deck. About a year and a half ago, I was walking down the deck with one of my kids, and I tripped on one of those old planks and said, you know what, it is time for a change here. And when you really think about it, that beautiful pier plaza that we built together, the focal point is the pier, and all the tourists and all our residents here go down that pier. So it was time to refurbish it. We pulled up all the planks, replaced them all, had a little bit of a hitch in the middle of the project, as you are all aware, with the contractor, but eventually got it done, and it is in great shape today. So lot of work went into that. Dade Avenue Street End, which is next to our new hotel, was also done. The port put $150,000 into that, and you know, that's one street end of many that we're going to be doing in Imperial Beach. And as you all know, we're actually looking at other street end improvements right now. We're doing a study for $150,000 on how we can enhance other street ends, you know, where people go and park, where they access the beach. And I will tell you, with the CIP workshop that we recently had, we'd spent about $10,000 to $15,000, and I called a timeout. I called an audible and had them stop. The reason why is because they're looking at street ends that are going all the way down South Seacoast, and I wasn't really sure that that reflected what this council wanted in terms of where you wanted street end improvements to be focused. You know, understanding that there's a lot of street ends, and you know, there's probably not the resources to do every single one. I wanted to call a timeout and give you all an opportunity to look and maybe prioritize where you want that money spent, how you want the street ends to look, to the extent that you all are doing maybe an improvement project in the area around Seacoast Drive, and you want to integrate that with the street ends. You know, it's just an opportunity for you to jointly plan with the port. So hope that, you know, usually I don't like delay in government, but in this case it seemed like it was the right thing to do, to call delay in order to give you a chance to weigh in. Sun and Sea Festival, what I thought was a very successful event. 35,000 people. You know, back to our roots in Imperial Beach. You know, I wasn't at the Sun and Sea Festival, the first one. I can say I was at the first Sandcastle as a young man, but you know, this really combined the best of what I remember that first Sandcastle. Families, community, still get to Sandcastles. It was really a great community event. Port of San Diego was very happy to put $30,000 into the event, and we put money in the year before, and we'll be putting money in again this year. And while it's not on the list, we've got some other exciting things. We're going to bring back Symphony on the Sea this year, which, I mean, what a cool venue, music on the water. You know, we've got that great park, let's use it, and let's get some great music there. We're also going to get you some fireworks. So, Pond 20, something I've been working on ever since I was where you guys are sitting. Talk about things taking a long time in government. So after 4 years, the first thing I did, when I got in the port, was I established an MOU. That was January 2010, sorry. 4 years later, we are about to break ground on the short-term improvement, which we're going to take that rusting fence and get it out of there, and we're going to put in along that entire 1,000 feet. I don't really want to call it a fence. I want to call it, it's really more of an art piece. And, you know, it is going to enclose Pond 20, but it's going to have silhouettes of various birds around the port. We're going to carry the surfboard theme that we've incorporated so well in Imperial Beach along the fence. It's really going to be an enhancement from what's there now. Now, the big question is the long-term improvements to Pond 20. And the port has done an RFP. We've done a lot of studies. We are going to land that plane this year. So as part of my chairmanship, and I've let everyone know it, we are going to make a final determination on the long-term use of Pond 20, what we're going to do with that property. And from my standpoint, you know, I've got several criteria. It's got to be an environmentally sensitive use. It also has to be economically beneficial to the region. And while those things may sound contradictory, I don't believe they are. I believe that you can do both, and I'm excited to share with you guys as we go along my ideas for how we're going to do that and get that project done. On to our current budget. I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Port of San Diego, $144 million budget, 60% of which is in real estate, our hotels, marinas along the tidelands, our maritime businesses. The good news is that $4.9 million deficit that was a year ago was replaced by a $12.5 million surplus this year. And that's great news. And, you know, what that means is the Port of San Diego can start to look at funding our capital improvement projects for 2014 to 2018, and in fact did fund $4.5 million of that. We can look at creating an investment fund, which we've started to do. We can look at doing deferred maintenance, which we have deferred for a period of time. Can't do maintenance when you're running a deficit. In terms of my goals going forward, I am looking to replace the word deficit in the Port of San Diego, and we've had a structural deficit for a period of time. I am introducing a new term to the Port of San Diego, and that term is structural surplus. We are going to set our budget to always be in surplus, good times and bad times. And you know the market's going to go up and it's going to go down. You know, I could take credit for $12.5 million, the political thing to do. I can't. The market's gotten better. It has created a $12.5 million surplus with good management at the Port of San Diego, no question. But we're going to work on getting a surplus every year. And the reason why that makes a difference is because if you have a surplus, there's more money to reinvest in the community. That is the history of the port. That is exactly where the port needs to be, is reinvesting in all 5 member cities. Feel very strongly about that. Speaking of investment, we've invested $1.7 billion in the last 50 years. When I speak to you January 13th, I'm going to be talking about the next 50 years and my plans and hopes for investment moving forward from the port in the community. As you know, we've got a strong maritime business, big focus on maritime. I'm not going to spend too much time on it other than just a quick fact you may not know. As part of the Pacific Fleet, we have the most home-ported naval ships in the United States, 86 ships. That directly benefits our shipyards, directly benefits all of our maritime tenants. You have to have shipbuilding tenants and repair tenants in order to service the Navy here in town. You start losing those businesses, you start losing the ability to service the Navy and other ships, all the dominoes fall over. It is very important to maintain a strong maritime presence here in our town. It's what San Diego was founded on. Our cruise business has really gone downhill. It's been very tough. You know, cruise companies own these billion-dollar assets that happen to be mobile and they can be redeployed anywhere. We have had redeployment, you know, in the downturn and some of the problems in Mexico. Happy to say it's on the rebound. And I'm also happy to say, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, Ron, so you kind of shut me down if I am, but, you know, a certain company with a spokesman with big black ears, you know, up in Anaheim is, I didn't give it away, did I? They are looking at home porting here in San Diego, which would be quite an exciting thing. Just another attraction for our region. One of the big things, and one of our responsibilities as a port is climate. We are stewards of the environment of San Diego Bay, and we are stewards of providing good climate policy. The port, we did a climate action plan, and we were actually one of the first ports in California, one of the first ports in the United States to adopt the Climate Action Plan. It's modeled largely after AB 32, with a 10% reduction by 2020 and a 25% reduction in CO2 gas by 2035. You know, and that's just one part of our Climate Action Plan. Actually, the Port of San Diego started a Green Port program in 2008. We are very, very committed to the environment, to clean water, clean air. You know, and I always like to say, you know, when we talk about this at the port, my kids are in that water every week directly, you know, along with a lot of your kids, you know, or grandkids. It is our responsibility and obligation, you know, to provide them clean water, clean air in the community. So that's another thing we take very seriously at the port. I know you guys do here as well. Integrated planning. This is a recent initiative. We've kind of taken the bull by the horns. We are looking at comprehensive planning all around the bay and looking at updating our port master plan, and a lot of great ideas have come from that. Chula Vista Bayfront Master Plan is a fully approved entitled project, and I will say we just had the developer in front of us yesterday. We're negotiating an ENA with the developer to build this exciting project out. You know, and as I've said here before, and I'll say again, it's not in Imperial Beach. Why am I talking about it? Because the Bayfront is one region, a rising tide floats all boats. This is an important project for Chula Vista, for Imperial Beach, for San Diego, for the entire region. This is going to be a big project. It's exciting. We will get benefits from this project. National City Aquatic Center. National City is getting their long-awaited aquatic center, and it's a great thing for their community and the kids of their community. It's a great project, and I would encourage you all to go down there and everyone in the audience to check that out. North Embarcadero Vision Plan. If you've ever been down by where the cruise ships are, where the Star of India is, that whole area has been completely remodeled, new landscaping, new facilities. Really a neat project. You know, San Diego kind of considers that, the city of San Diego considers that their front porch, and it's a really well done project. Finally, Lanefield North is a new hotel that we've entitled and is under construction right now, and actually now Lanefield South will soon have an option on it, and that'll be a very high-end hotel like an Intercontinental Hotel. And I'll just say, you know, it's important to tell you all about projects that are going on outside of the city, because ultimately the Port of San Diego, our ability to do all the things we do, the environmental stewardship, you know, the public safety money, the supporting of cities, the capital improvement projects, that all is related to the financial sustainability of the organization. Projects like this make the port more financially sustainable, which in turn frees up more money to be invested in the community. So I will tell you, the Board of Port Commissioners really looks at the port and that role as one regional thing. There's not a lot of parochialism on the port. We really try and make decisions that are for the benefit of all the cities, and that's how we look at it. And it's important for you to know that. With that, I'll take questions, and I just want to thank you all again. It's been an honor to serve the city. It really has been, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much, and open it up for questions.
Thanks, Commissioner Malcolm. Are there any questions or comments? Great.
Mr. Malcolm, thank you for your presentation. As always, it's informative. I did want to talk to you about some of the things that you highlighted and just how they sit in my mind. Thank you for your time out on the on stopping the street end improvements. And Mr. Hall, I hope that you were listening to that, and colleagues as well. This is critical for us. And you used the word joint planning. You talked about integrated planning. This is extremely huge for us, that we can weigh in and we can collaborate and we can maybe craft these street ends the way we want them to. So, Mr. Malcolm, thank you for that. I think it's extremely important for us. Again, thank you for the symphony and the fireworks. The Pond 20 final determination is awesome. We've all been patient, we've all waited, and I know you've been as anxious as we all have. So thank you for moving that forward. The surplus is amazing. And you talked about the market doing better, but can you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Well, yeah, I can get technical. I don't want to put everyone to sleep. I will tell you that we had a 0.04% projected increase in our revenue, and we instead had a 3.6% increase. And when you're talking about revenue in the hundreds of millions of dollars, that's a big delta. You know, but it's not just that. You know, that certainly accounted for a lot of the surplus, but I've also got to give, you know, credit to the fine management at the port that did vacancy management, you know, looked at new positions and, you know, kept some positions vacant, you know, really ran a tight ship, you know, in a tough time in order to come up with that surplus. And we needed that surplus money because, you know, there are a lot of needs and very few resources. You know, you hear it in every government meeting, but the port is no different, you know, than any other government. And, you know, there's a lot of places for us to put that money. And so we need, you know, running a surplus isn't a optional thing. It is mandatory in order for us to do what we have to do.
Thank you. What was especially interesting to me was the deferred maintenance, and there has been some issues in Imperial Beach that, you know, at Pier Plaza that I think have needed to be addressed, and we've been approaching them as we can. So thank you for that. The other thing that I really appreciate, Mr. Malcolm, is that your vision for the next 50 years. You know, we talk about vision planning 5 years, 10 years down the road, but unless you're looking at 50 years, you shouldn't even be looking. So thank you for that, and that's something that our council has always talked about. So we're simpatico. So thank you. Again, thank you for the climate action plan. Extremely important to us, to our community. Thank you for your hard work on that, and thank you. You have done us proud.
Well, Councilmember Bragg, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councilmember Spriggs.
I echo my colleagues' thanks to you and the port for these initiatives and for the long-term vision and for the more immediate Imperial Beach-related initiatives. I also want to reiterate what Councilmember Bragg said and what you said about coordination on improvements, on capital improvements in Imperial Beach. In the last few years, with recently the advent of Pier South, the new restaurants, etc., the whole Imperial Beach has become discovered. We now have opportunities we never had before to frame our own destiny in terms of what kind of visitor-serving community we want to be, how far do we want to go in terms of making improvements in different parts of Imperial Beach to assure that we have financial sustainability to take care of the needs of our residents going forward into future generations. This kind of forward planning in terms of who we are as a community and our financial sustainability, we can't do in isolation. The port is such a huge partner in everything that all of our plans, all of our infrastructure, especially along the tidelands, that when you say coordination is an important value of yours as the incoming chair, that really, I think, strikes home very, very dearly, given where we are now and where we're trying to move as a community. So thank you very much for that, and I think the City Council and City staff very much look forward to those opportunities to coordinate. There's an immediate, the whole street ends thing, as you pointed out, ties in very well with what we had approved in our last council session, capital improvements in terms of the Seacoast Drive aesthetics project. There have been meetings with the business community regarding what that project should be, and it's clear that the street ends are an integral part of that whole neighborhood, that whole business, visitor-serving, community-serving neighborhood, and that some degree, a high degree of of collaboration is needed. So the timeout to achieve that, perfect, just absolutely perfect. I mean, it's really wonderful when we don't have to be in a position of trying to come from behind and scrabble to get to the point where we have collaboration. And you know, I think it's a testimony to your leadership and others on the port staff.
It's a team effort,
right?
Not just me.
So again, that's very much appreciated. Sun and Sea, this is a great collaboration. We couldn't have done the Sun and Sea without the port support, but we also couldn't have done it without a huge community effort here in Imperial Beach, led by the citizens of Imperial Beach, some of whom are in this room. Same thing with fireworks. They filled the gap last year, and it's great that the port is coming back and is going to be a partner with Imperial Beach going forward. So thank you very much for all of that.
Thank you, Councilmember Spriggs. Appreciate it.
Okay, my turn. Commissioner Malcolm.
Ooh, looks like you've got a tough one.
And when you came up and said I'm going to speak off the cuff, I mean, you heard the audience. There was no surprise to that. Just FYI, you always come up with a lot of good things, and off the cuffs is some of your best. I do want to let you know, my role up here and our role up here, we're sales people for Imperial Beach. I feel like I'm constantly bragging, selling Imperial Beach, and let you know that all the things that the port does for Imperial Beach, I do give credit to, and say, the port helped us with that, and the port helped us with that, and the port helped us with that. And so just let you know that the importance of all the things that you do to continue to bring people to Imperial Beach and make Imperial Beach better is noticed, and credit is given when it's due. So I thank you on that.
I appreciate that, but I do that with the port hat off. I'm a big fan of this town.
I know that, and I call it the gateway fence on Pond 20.
Okay.
And that is a gateway. This is people are driving off of Highway 5 on Palm Avenue, and that's a gateway. They're entering, and then all of a sudden they see this soon to be a great artwork fence, and I just can't wait. It's going to be amazing, and it's just going to lead it right into the best town in California. And then one question on the long-term plans on the street ends. What were the plans on that of just getting the public involved for maybe some ideas?
We can do stakeholder outreach. However you think the collaboration would work best. Really my concern is that I didn't want us, as a staff, going too far down the road without doing a process check. And it kind of felt to me like when I'm looking at all these different street ends that are spread out everywhere that, it was time for a process check to determine, just to kind of link up with what you're doing with how we're planning. So, in terms of what the collaboration looks like, it can be whatever you think is appropriate.
Excellent. And that can be discussed later. And just to end, just again, thank you for everything that you do as well as support. Thank you.
Councilmember Patton, thank you very much.
Are there any other comments?
I just have one real quick. President Company, included, if you'll pass on to your staff, we really appreciate the fact that they include us, and we have a great relationship with your staff, and they really do a great job, and they give us a lot of information, a lot of support. They've talked about some things they can do for us, some in-house planning and some long-term strategic planning along Seacoast and some of the tidelands. So if you will be sure to thank them for us, they do a great job in working with our staff.
Well, City Manager Hall, I'll do that. And now that you've spoken up, I'm going to just be gratuitous. I'm going to tell you that our staff really enjoys working with you. So they call it a very positive experience, and I think that feedback is important back to the council members. There is an excellent relationship between the staff here and the staff at the port, which is a great thing.
Good for you to say that. We just renewed his contract.
Well, I should have been in here last week and gotten your raise. I'm sorry.
Any other comments? Commissioner Malcolm, I just wanted to thank you, and I'm really excited about the symphony. That was one of my sort of checklist things, and I have fond memories of the symphony, and I'm really glad that you brought that back. I think we all really appreciate the start of having more culture in IB and on the beachfront and maybe at Veterans Park. So that's awesome. And then thank you for the work on the Pond 20 fence. I know I share with the council that we're really excited to have that gateway project. And also I was at the Seacoasters meeting that Councilmember Spriggs and City Manager Andy Hall participated in, and the issue of the street ends really came up. So I think we're all really stoked to make sure that'll come through. I think that was a really important thing for people in that meeting. So thank you for all the great work the port's doing. I appreciate it.
Well, Mayor, thank you very much, and you guys have a happy holiday, and I will see you January 13th down at Pier South.
All right, thank you.
All right.
We have Claire Buckley would like to make a statement. Would you like to address?
Okay, my name is Claire Buckley.
Okay.
I'll make way.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Manager, Secretary, etc. My name is Claire Buckley. I live at 632 Dahlia Avenue. I've been a resident here for a while, and I do want to thank you, Mr. Malcolm, for your work and for your encouragement about the Port District staff. That's always good to hear. I too am happy about Pond 20, although certainly there's a lot of questions there. I won't bring them up tonight. Sounds really nice that you're going to do a little artwork there. I do have some questions regarding projects inside IB. Projects outside IB are very important. They're helpful to everyone, but I don't think they're as helpful to IB as putting money into IB. Now, if the entire bay front is improved, or the entire bay, then that's vital to everyone. So my questions go this way. Chula Vista has gotten $7 million, that's about correct. I don't know what National City has gained or what the project in San Diego gained. And you listed off a few things. The pier replanking, $150,000 for street ends. Wrote them down. There's a lot. Oh yes, what? 10,000 for fireworks, perhaps. The Sun and Sea Symphony, Sandcastle. Okay. Let's see. My feeling is that one of the reasons it's easy for them to work with us is we don't ask a lot. What have we gotten compared to the other cities? You know, it used to be difficult for Imperial Beach to get any respect there. It's not the case anymore. There was a time when we didn't even have a say because we don't actually own any property on the bay. But we were given some jurisdiction there, and we were given a voice in the port, which we didn't have before. And we've had some really good port district. Shake your head. Yes. But, you know, when I look at what IB needs, I'm not going to go into anything but one thing. I've known for 7 or 8 years when I started rollerblading that from 7th to Coronado or from the New Path to Main Street, I don't go through IB anymore. It's like rolling over rocks. And yet it's been totally ignored. Why? I'm not going to give you my opinion except a little hint. Seacoast Drive. So I really think that we need to focus on some of these things. Some of these things that go away from the Seacoast is important to the city of IB and the people that use it. And you want Imperial Beach to be a gateway to people who are on their bike, walking, rollerblading, skateboarding on the bike path. They come into the city and they go, Imperial Beach cuts again. We're going to try to avoid this path because it's full of ruts. You know, and every so often I see 2 or 3 maintenance guys out there going, that's good, fill it up. Okay, oh, it's a little, you know, oh, we'll come back later. You know, so it's not their fault. It's nobody's fault except that the whole thing needs to take. And anyway, I want to congratulate you on everything you do. I'm going to ask you and the City Council to please keep giving the deferred maintenance that Lori mentioned, please get your best shot and push for more. 7 million to Chula Vista, and what do we get? We need more. We're a big city. Chula Vista is bigger because they took the ranch property out there. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Would you like to just address those?
Ms. Buckley, yeah, I appreciate, you know, highlighting issues like that. And I will say, just for clarification, and, you know, sometimes it's hard to track how things happen, and I certainly appreciate your questions, and thank you for bringing them up. Chula Vista recently did get a $7 million improvement, their 8th Street extension going to the Chula Vista Bayfront Master Plan. That money came from the original CIP settlement money from the second convention center. They didn't spend that money. They actually kept it, you know, waiting for a day when they would spend it, you know, on the improvement for the Chula Vista Bayfront Master Plan. Each city got $10 million at a convention center too. Our $10 million, we were lucky enough, we spent it right away on the Pier Plaza, turning a parking lot into that park, into the Dempsey Holder Safety Center, the retail center, which, you know, I would argue really for Seacoast Drive really was a catalyst project that, you know, really changed the face of Seacoast Drive. And, you know, we were lucky enough to plan that, had some great community leaders, Diane Rose and Mike Bixler, that, you know, planned and got that done. So that was a great improvement. In terms of ongoing money, it's true. We always look for more money. We're trying. That's why we try and get a surplus. I will mention, however, that you will recall we do every year have public safety contracts, maintenance contracts. Those contracts are about $4 million a year. And for the first time, because certainty in business and certainty in government is important, those were always 2-year contracts, maybe 3-year contracts. And for the first time in the history of the port, we actually made that a 9-year contract so that the city of Imperial Beach doesn't need to worry every 2 or 3 years about going back, renegotiating public safety, maintenance, you know, all the things that those contracts cover. We now know that we have 9 years where that is a certainty for this city. You know, and $4 million, you know, in the general fund of IB is a significant portion of this general fund every year. You know, so I was happy that we could remove that in the table and get to actually looking for money, you know, for other projects that this city does deserve. You know, it's just creating surpluses to get the money. But thank you for allowing me to respond, and again, thank you for this time. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Malcolm.
Mayor, maybe before you leave, Commissioner Malcolm, this is a great time for maybe some community education. What that money goes for is essentially the port provides all of our lifeguard service. They provide all of our Tidelands maintenance and Tidelands workers, as well as a large percentage of our sheriff's contracts. So those are great questions, but we want to make sure that the public understands that, and that far exceeds what any other community gets for those types of services. In fact, I think we're the only community that has those services. So we get our funding from the port perhaps in a different way than some of the other communities do. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to express that, because again, a big part of what we do here in the community.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. All right, if I make any mistakes, just please tell me. But we're moving on to consent calendar 2.1 to 2.4. And I would like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar item numbers 2.1 through 2.4. Great. With that, we take a vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Now we move on to the public hearing portion of the meeting, 4.1 to 4.2. 4.1, adoption of resolution number 2014-7538, approving the Imperial Beach Business Improvement District PID annual report for fiscal year 2013 to 2014, and authorizing the levying of the fiscal year 2014 to 15 annual assessment for the BID pursuant to the Parking and Business Improvement Area Law of 1989. Gavel, microphone, and I declare the public hearing open. City manager will give the report.
Yep, Mayor and Council, the first hearing tonight is with the Business Improvement District, and this is the second in a two-step process. At a previous meeting, the City Council established tonight as a public hearing to review the budget as well as assess the Business Improvement District for the next calendar year. We have representatives from the BID with us tonight. We have Mr. Mickelson as well as Ms. Lepowski, and I don't know which one of them is going to give a report, but I know that they did provide us with a PowerPoint presentation for your review tonight. And then again, we would be looking for a motion to adopt the resolution at once we receive public comment, and we'll turn some time over to, it looks like, Mr. Mickelson.
Mayor, council members, Jim Mickelson, member of the board of directors of the Imperial Beach Chamber of Commerce Visitors Bureau, and with Ms. Christine Lipinski, our current chairman of our Business Improvement District Committee. We're honored to be here once again every year as we appear. We're here for the purpose and support of the resolution, asking you to approve our budgets and to levy the tax so we can continue the work we do. We're honored to be the agency that the city is contracted with to administer the bid funds and accomplishes the purposes of the bid district. We have here a small slide presentation just to show you what we do and what we're planning on doing. Our purposes include the administration and operations of the bid district. We work on parking improvements, beautification, special projects, special promotions, special events, advertising, and miscellaneous activities. They consist of the Paint the Box program we've been operating since 2003, as you can see there. Next. Our holiday decorations, which as Council Member Bragg pointed out, mysteriously appeared this year. But that's some of our projects. In addition to that, we have other beautification projects, such as the next one, the American flags, which the Business Improvement District purchased, and with the assistance and cooperation of the fire department, they are flown on various days as set forth on our slide there. Next. In addition, a lot of the music events that you see as far as the bands down on the street ends for our Sunset series and music provided, we contributed to music from the Sun and Sea Festival. We support those with the bid funds. And finally, one of our major events is our Taste of IB, which we put on as an opportunity for the residents of the community to come down into one location along Seacoast, Palm Avenue, and the Pier Plaza to meet and interact with the members of the Business Improvement District. In addition, we have undertaken some new projects this year. One is the design and placement of bike racks. The second is reaching out into a regional area by funding and producing over 100,000 visitor planning guides and brochures to be distributed throughout California at 564 locations. That's a new project of ours. Additionally, we're working on a project which is we call the Sidewalk Stencil Project, which is to aid in the enforcement of the compliance with the city ordinance of no skateboarding on the city sidewalks. And also we're working on a project we call the sidewalk cleaning in the business districts. And finally, one of our projects is to help promote parking, how we park on the bid improvement districts to make it easier, provide more parking. Those are our projects. Our budget items reflect some of these projects, reflect some that have already occurred this year, and we're here to urge you to adopt the resolution. Any questions?
And I'm sorry I wasn't here for your presentation previously. I had a family emergency that I had to attend. Well, I commend you on your budget and for drawing down on your carry forward balances and putting the funds that you have received from the assessment of businesses in the BID to good use. I think you guys are doing a I can see the trend of improvement in that over time, and that's really commendable. I think I just have 3 comments, not really questions to you. One is, and this is really addressed to us as well as council members. I'm not quite sure why the BID should be putting up bicycle racks and street stenciling. It seems to me this is a city responsibility, and that the BID should be focusing more on enhancing the businesses. Like we do facade improvement funding, maybe the BID ought to be doing facade improvement funding, and we ought to be doing infrastructure on the streets and public rights of way. Just something for us to think about going forward, where the business community does what it does best and the city does what it does best. Because that's 10 grand right there of your budget on, you know, bicycle racks and sidewalk stencils. The other 2 comments are there's one big need that has been identified, and the managing director of the Pier South is probably the leading advocate. Mayor Dedina has been in meetings where he has advocated this, and that is a visitor center that serves the business community and that is perhaps operated through the Chamber of Commerce and or the BID, is something that our city really, really needs, especially now as we're getting more and more dependent on, or have more opportunities for visitors to be attracted to our community and to all the businesses in our community, which ties in with the 3rd comment. So we need to be doing something between the chamber, the hotel, our primary visitor serving industry, and maybe the city, about getting a real visitor center up and running in the very near term. Something to start with, and then maybe we plan on something major further down the road. Finally, and this is, I'm harping on something I harped on 2 years ago and then last year as well, which is the use of brochures as opposed to websites and more modern, even Facebook, for communications regarding all the great things to do and see in Imperial Beach and all the great businesses that are in Imperial Beach. There's no way that the brochure can keep up with the new businesses that are opening up in Imperial Beach. As soon as it's published, it's out of date. This is the point I was trying to make a year ago, that there are other modalities that are more modern that can incorporate, let's say, a Coronado Brewery into the advertising when when a brochure misses out that opportunity. So these are just comments. They're not criticisms. They're opportunities. They're things that we can work on together, and things that the chamber and the BID can also work with the city on and with our hotel industry.
Councilmember Spriggs, I'm happy to report that your comments have been addressed and are being addressed. We are in January starting on what will be the beginnings of a visitor center. We have the Chamber of Commerce has already set aside funds and developing plans to turn our small location into a true visitor center through the small funding we have and the volunteer efforts of volunteers. We plan to open it up and make it more visitor friendly and promote it as a visitor center. In addition, come the first part of the year, we are looking to redesign our website to accommodate exactly what you're talking about, to make it a go-to website, a user-friendly website that incorporates modern technology.
Councilmember Bragg, you have comments?
Thank you. I just wanted to state for the record that I was in a meeting with members of the Business Improvement District, members of the Chamber of Commerce, City Manager Hall, and I was asked to be there as somebody who could lend a little bit of historical information as to the formation of the Business Improvement District. I just wanted to state that for the record.
Great, thank you, Councilmember Patton.
Thanks for being here and for what you do for our city. One of my big ones that I think I mention every time is the Taste of IB, and from what I've seen, it's getting bigger and bigger, as is our town, and that we're hitting restaurants just not on Seacoast or Palm Avenue, but we're hitting all the restaurants in the area, and I think that's fantastic. I think it's a huge draw for our community. Second is the idea of the brochures. I, on the other hand, Mr. Spriggs, I love opening up that book, and everywhere I travel, I'm picking up brochures, and brochures can be dynamic where they change. And then as for the technical part, I think we need an IB app, right? How hard is that? Push it, and then there you are. And I think that would be something, you could move on. Yeah, go ahead.
We actually, not this last board meeting, because that was today, this previous one, they brought forth a presentation. I think it's National City has one already. And we're looking into creating one for ourselves, because I agree with you, Council Member Patton, that we need multiple channels of promotion, both old school in the brochure and modern. We are on Facebook and as our website.
And then finally, I like seeing you guys so much that I think after 6 months, it would be nice if you came in and did a little slideshow, maybe a little music, and show us something that you've done, and to really sell. Like, this is what we've done. This is where your money's going, and look how great we are. And that's just a suggestion.
We'll work on that.
Okay, well, something to think about, right? Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? I wanted to...
Comment? The wreaths this year, like, that's something that we did this year, and the flags was this year. So, and you like the taste of IB, and I'm proud to say that Jack Fisher is going to be working with us this year. Like, he's going to expand the restaurant part of the taste for us this year, so it's going to be bigger and better yet. You're welcome.
Great, thank you very much, and I just wanted to thank you guys. It's obvious there's a lot of new energy in the BID, and it was really awesome to see the firefighters put up those flags this year. Thank you very much. I realized that I forgot to open up the public. I did. Oh, I said, okay, it's fine. Anyway, good. Without the consent of the City Council, I'm closing the public hearing, and I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2014-7538, approving the final report for from the BID for fiscal year 2013 to 2014, and the budget and proposed activities for fiscal year 2014-2015, and levying the assessment for properties within the BID for fiscal year 2014 to 2015.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great, thank you. Now we'll move on to item number 4.2, and that's adopt resolution number 2014-7537, ratifying the city manager's signature on the application for the fiscal year 2015-16 Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, additional estimated funding of $12,183 to be used to partially reimburse the City of Imperial Beach for the purchase of self-contained breathing apparatus for the Fire Rescue Department. The public hearing is now open. Public Safety, Tom Clark will give the report.
Mayor, Council, Manager, you guys awarded through the CDBG process 3 years of funding to buy a fire engine, went towards a fire engine. And this is just a cleanup issue with the CDBG. They had estimated approximately $103,000 as the final payment to us. That number went down to $91,000, and then it went back up to $95,000. So the residual that we had was an estimate of $12,000 that we're going to put towards SCBA's. In reality, it came out to about $3,509. This report is an estimate. We understand that this number still can fluctuate, but because of the timing, we had to have the manager's signature on it. And again, it's a cleanup item with them.
You know, Mayor, if I could add to that a little bit, what CDBG requires is before we can expend any of those funds, we need to have a public hearing, and the City Council needs to decide whether this is the appropriate way to spend our Community Development Block Grant funds. They could be spent on a different project but we've been told that it would be very difficult. CDBG is not an easy grant to administer, and for $3,500, what the county has told us is that because we use this money to purchase the fire truck, we can purchase fire apparatus without having to go through another application process. We can use the residual that the chief was talking about. So even though this money could be spent on other things such as handicap ramps or other things that the city needs, the practicality of it is for that small amount of money, the only real option we have would be to reduce the cost of something we already had in the budget in the fire department, and that's what we're proposing tonight. And despite the fact that usually we bring Chief Clark up here when we want something denied, we hope that you'll consider that for approval tonight.
Sure.
I think it's real important, these apparatus. Can you give us one circumstance that you actually use it?
Anytime you go into a working structure fire, you are wearing an SCBA to protect your respiratory system and to be able to operate effectively as a firefighter to do the rescue if people are in there, as well as extinguish the fire.
Very important indeed. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions or comments? Oh, Madam Clerk, are there any speaker slips?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Good. And so without I'm closing the public. I'm sorry. I need to entertain the motion, right? Is that right?
Yeah. Just make sure there's no dissent. Close public hearing.
Without dissent of the City Council, I'm closing the public hearing.
Motion carried unanimously.
Good. Now we move on to the reports section of the agenda. 5.1, City Council briefing number 4, Palm Avenue Mixed Use and Commercial Corridor Master Plan Update and Announcement of Second Community Workshop. Assistant City Manager Wade will give the report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start first by congratulating and welcoming both members of the council back, Council Members Bragg and Spriggs, and welcome to the new mayor, Mr. Mayor. Danina, welcome. This is, as Mr. Mayor said, the 4th council briefing on this project. I'm going to give you a, oops, I got a little, it's not a little PowerPoint. Buckle in. No pun intended. What I plan to do during this presentation is give you a project update, the last council briefing having occurred back in August. At that meeting, and as part of the outreach effort, it's no secret that one big concern, or a concern, are traffic impacts associated with improvements to the Palm Avenue State Route 75 corridor. So I'm going to go into quite a bit of detail about that component. And that will be culminated by one of the provided services that, or deliverables as part of the grant. By the way, for the people not familiar with the project, it is taking a master plan study that was done, funded by a Caltrans grant back in 2007 through 2009 that looked at ways to create a more Main Street atmosphere along Palm Avenue, State Route 75, make it safer for pedestrians, safer for bicyclists, safer for vehicles, and make a more conducive environment to promote commercial retail development within the corridor. Also to prevent the corridor from being sort of bifurcating or separating two important neighborhoods in our community, the Bayview neighborhood, Bayside community, and the rest of the city. That was then completed in February 2009, and this next phase is funded by a Smart Growth Incentive Grant from SANDAG, and with matching funds from the city. And so we've been developing this in a large outreach effort, which I'll talk a little bit about, started in April of this year. So a project update. As everyone knows, this is a state highway, and a large component of this has been working with and through Caltrans to talk about some of the improvements that we hope to make. And it has been reported that some of the elements that we are recommending in the project have run into a little bit of a challenge with state highway design standards. three of the items, and they pertain to lane widths, which part of the project proposes to slightly reduce the lane widths to calm traffic. The local access medians, which are proposed for between 9th Street and Florida Streets, and some of the bulb outs that will serve two issues or two objectives: slowing traffic and providing shorter crossing distances for pedestrians, have been determined by Caltrans to not meet state highway design standards, particularly because of the design speed that exists today on that roadway, which is west of 9th Street, 45 miles an hour. So we, understanding that, the council had supported us looking into the idea of a relinquishment, and at the last council meeting authorized us to request that Caltrans, after the first component of the project, which, I'm sorry, I think I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. In any event, I'll get into a little bit of detail later on that, but I just wanted to go through the other project updates. The Navy Coastal Campus, that was also brought up in the August meeting. What might that project impact this project? How might there be an impact on what we're proposing in the Palm Master Plan corridor with this Coastal Campus project being proposed? So I'm going to give you an update on that. There are some design considerations that we've looked at since the last meeting, since the public outreach, and with input from the community and the council and design review board. I'm going to give you a little overview of that. And I wanted to also announce that the second workshop, community workshop, has been scheduled for January 15th, Thursday, in the community room right here at City Hall. And that we will send out quite a bit of information to the community to get involvement in that workshop. And as I mentioned, I'll get into quite a bit of the traffic analysis so you can see the impacts associated with projects and how the corridor will absorb those impacts. I started getting into a little bit of detail on the Caltrans project scope summary report. Prior to the scope summary report, there was a transportation system analysis and evaluation, and effectively that was completed in July of this year, and that was a process that Caltrans has to go through to basically say, is this a highway or component of a highway that can be relinquished? The report determined that yes, it could be, and we reported that to the council in August. The next step of that process is to assess the roadway through a project scope summary report to see how it meets or does not meet state highway standards. And what Caltrans will do, and has started already doing, is to analyze the roadway, and where it is deficient, analyze those components that need to be improved to bring it up to current standards, and a way that can what can result from that is a financial contribution negotiation with the local government, in effectively providing the government with a funding to bring the roadway up to the current standards. That's a negotiated financial contribution, and we don't know where it will take us, but they are in the middle of providing that. We requested that back in August. It does not commit the city to accept the relinquish right-of-way. It just says, hey, we're interested in seeing what might be needed to bring this to current standards. We were informed last week that they expect to have that completed by the end of June of this coming year. So that is the next step that we're awaiting a determination from Caltrans on what it might look like if the city were to accept that right of way, and what the contribution to fund those improvements might be. The Navy Coastal Campus project, that's effectively, it's a 1.5 million square foot facility just north of the city at the old Navy radio receiving facility. Approximately 3,500 personnel, and a generation of approximately 8,900 average daily trips of traffic. No small facility. And of course, as I mentioned at the last meeting, that project had sort of just become into the public scope. The EIS had been circulated and comments were being prepared. So we have looked at that and factored that into our traffic analysis to tell you and show you what that might look like. Although there will be economic benefits with a facility of that size to our city, there are also traffic impacts identified in the EIS. The city and this city council approved a letter commenting on those impacts, and that was provided to the Navy. The Navy has expressed what we believe is a sincere desire to work with us on implementing the identified impacts, most of which are within the Palm Avenue State Route 75 corridor, most of which identify intersection improvements, including signalization, phasing, and timing, rephasing the signalization, and that's something that's a key component of this Palm Master Plan project. So that's actually good news that the Navy has expressed a willingness to work with us to implement those mitigation measures. The Coastal Commission approved the federal consistency determination at their meeting on November 12th, and so that project met that obligation and is moving forward past that consistency determination. The design considerations, the primary design consideration that through the community outreach effort we were asked to look at is the local access lanes, and that's in what we call the mid-block, midtown sector rather, and that's the area where we've really from a urban design standpoint is concentrating the area that the main street or downtown of the corridor would be. Those local access lanes would create two lanes of through traffic for the highway and one local access lane, still 6 lanes of traffic. It would not reduce the number of lanes of traffic, and it would extend, as I mentioned, from 9th Street to Florida Street. There was a lot of support from the community members and the business community, as well as the Design Review Board, so much so that they asked that we look at extending them potentially further eastward to either 12th Street or even 13th Street. For a variety of reasons, we looked at that and are still recommending that it focus still from 9th to Florida, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The first of which is from an urban design standpoint. The idea was to really create something different and unique for this small segment of the roadway. The other is from a traffic control standpoint and traffic impact standpoint. We felt it was important to give some transition on either end of the corridor, the east end and the west end of the corridor, to allow vehicles to transition into and out of those local access lanes. And we felt it was a safer roadway for those reasons. So at this point, we're not recommending extension of the local access lanes. We're sticking with the study proposal as well as what's recommended, was recommended when we went out to the community. 2 intersections that proposed designated and enhanced crosswalks with bulb outs to, as I mentioned, slow traffic, as well as make a safer, shorter distance for pedestrians to cross, are at the intersections of 9th and 13th Streets. However, there are turning radius requirements in the State Highway Design Manual, as well as in our own traffic safety standards that have resulted in us recommending that those bulb outs not be, and actually under State Highway Design Standards, they can't be implemented at those intersections. And for those reasons, they are not being proposed at 9th and 13th Streets at this time. And you'll see those as I show the visual simulation where those have been removed. So those are the design elements or considerations that the consultant team has looked into and are recommending as we move forward. Now onto the traffic analysis and impacts. There's a couple things I want to stress as we move into this, and I want people to keep an open mind as they watch these videos. First of all, the project itself does not create traffic. There is no traffic demand created by a roadway improvement. The projects create traffic demand. They create people, employment, jobs, business. That creates traffic. What this project does is it proposes roadway improvements to absorb, handle, and manage that traffic. And it does so not only by physical capital improvements, but also by looking at the signalization, the phasing, and the timing of those signals to make sure that traffic moves through the corridor more effectively and more efficiently. The project improves overall the horizon year, which in the traffic study is 2035, but in the models you'll see is actually 2040. Keep in mind, we'll be looking at what traffic might look like in the year 2040 and along the State Route 75 Palm Avenue corridor. And the important thing to note is that the without project future condition is and compared to the with project, by project I mean this master plan, the with project condition improves the future condition along that corridor with all the projects that we're considering. It's also important to know that traffic is going to happen with or without this project. And it's going to happen with or without the projects that we've factored into the model, the cumulative project list. Traffic is going to happen. So we need to prepare for that and make sure that we manage this roadway in a way that makes sense for our community as well as our visitors. Most of the existing traffic and the future traffic is and will be generated from uses outside our city. So restricting or paying or scrutinizing projects within our city to some extent can be counterproductive when you consider it's a small fraction of the total traffic that is going to be using this roadway. And I'll show you a little pie chart to illustrate that. And that, as I mentioned, cumulative projects have been analyzed, meaning we've looked at all the foreseeable projects that might happen in the near term and out to 2024 with the coastal campus, and we factored those the traffic into the model and the visual simulation you will see. The cumulative projects that are included, obviously the Navy, Naval Base Coronado Coastal Campus, the Bernardo Shores Residential Project, Bikeway Village. This is important to note. The entire commercial zoning review, general plan amendments, that means that the build-out scenarios with the projects or the zoning that we updated about 2 years ago, finally by the Coastal Commission, are contemplated as a build-out scenario in these models. So that means that every property along those commercial corridors is developed to their maximum density. So keep in mind what that means, because the actuality of that happening is probably not high, but that's what we need to forecast in order to give the public and the council the image that it needs to see, as well as the Breakwater Shopping Center. Now, keeping in perspective, this is a pie chart that shows the amount of the traffic in the corridor that the city is creating. The blue shows the existing ADT today, and this is a segment of the roadway between 9th and 10th. This is just a little snapshot, one of the busier sections of the roadway at 32,973 ADT today. That's what our traffic, about half of that, probably a little more than half, is traffic from outside the city. In other words, it's not traffic generated leaving the city and coming into the city, it's just going through the corridor. 4,000 ADT will be created by the Navy Base Coronado project, the coastal campus rather, and the city's projects will account for 2,800 ADT. So again, and that's the build out scenario I just mentioned in terms of all projects being built out by the year 2035 to 2040. Just to look at some of the impacts, these are peak hour intersections, and what you see here, I'll try to use the cursor. These are for all the intersections that have impacts. The yellow, the green indicates the level of capacity, level of service between A and C. Think of it as a letter grade. A is good, F is bad, C is average. I like to think of it as a little bit above average. And then AM is, the yellow is again from D to E, and overcapacity level of service F. This is existing peak hour conditions as it is today. So you see at the intersections of 13th in the PM and Rainbow in the AM, you have a level of service at D or E. So already we're looking at a level of service that's not as good, and I think practical experience will tell you that those are the intersections that you see in the AM leaving town. You're going to have traffic going out of town at 13th, and in the morning leaving, going north on Rainbow, you're going to have some traffic. Moving into future, this is without the project. Okay, hold on a second, let me back up. So this is existing. This is without the project. You see a level of F at Rainbow in the morning, and you see the PM at Rainbow get going to level 7 service D or E. So that's what happens without the project. With the project in future condition, this is your 2035, you actually see an improvement and PM at this intersection, slightly worsening of traffic at 9th, and this still remains. Again, it doesn't change, but what I want to report, and I'll show you a little later, is that that F becomes a better F. And you'll see that in a table. What that means is levels of service at intersections are measured by how long you wait, how long all traffic at an intersection clears the intersection. And so they time it. And so the time delay decreases in the future with this project. So I want to underscore that the project actually improves the waiting time in the future at that intersection in the morning. This can make you go blind if you look at it too closely, but I've tried to highlight my exceptional PowerPoint skills. Hopefully this works. Probably should have said that after I did this. This is horizon year 2035 without the project and with the project, and you can see the levels of service. You want to pay attention to these grades here. And what you can see is that these intersections that I'm highlighting right now, hopefully you can see all that, all stay the same in the with and without project condition. In other words, they stay C and C, C and C, D and D, E and E. Wow, that worked well. So again, that's with and without project conditions. At 7th Street in Delaware and Delaware and 9th, you see a decrease in service from B to C, still highly functional, B, C to D. So that's getting a little less functional. That's from the horizon year with and without project conditions. Looking at the intersection, and this is in the AM, so this is the morning peak traffic. As I mentioned, Rainbow already functions at an F in the horizon year.
Hey, you might want to explain that F. They're talking about timing, how long you have to wait at the intersection. It's not doesn't fail in terms of accidents and stuff.
That's correct. It's this here, this percentage delay. You see this delay here? That's the time it takes for all the traffic to clear the intersection. Waiting at any point of that intersection, it takes all the traffic to clear that intersection. In the future with project, that wait drops by 17.6 seconds. And that's actually a fairly sizable improvement at that intersection. Now, again, keeping in mind, there's going to be traffic. We can't sugarcoat it any other way, but the with project condition shows that it will be an improvement over what we would see with no project. There's that delay of that improvement delay. The intersections at SR 75 and 7th, Palm and 7th, Palm and 10th, Palm and Florida, Palm and 13th. Again, they all show the same levels of service with and without. Actually, there's an improvement at Palm and 7th. Same level of service at Palm and 7th. Levels of service at 10th and Florida stay the same, and at 13th Street it stays the same as well, with a slight decrease in delay time. Okay, why isn't this going? Oh, the one thing I wanted to mention is that in terms of an environmental impact, there is no significant impact. You may think, well, that doesn't make any sense. There's a level of service F, but the without project condition is already at an F, and the improvement, there's going to be improvement that is not considered a significant, doesn't meet the terms of significance criteria for this, for the environmental review. So in Peaks intersection, I'll try to get through this a little bit quickly again. Here you have the levels of service. This is horizon year without the project, horizon with the project, Rainbow and 75, SR 75, or Palm and 7th, Palm and 7th, Palm and 9th, Palm and 10th, and Palm and 12th all have the same levels of service with and without the project. Actually, an improvement again in the PM at the Rainbow intersection. Same at both the 7th Street intersections, same at 9th and 10th, same at Palm and 12th, and same at I'm sorry, and the intersections at Delaware are dropped from an A to a B. Palm in Florida drops from a B to a C. And at Palm and 13th, it drops from a D to a C. And again, although there is some slight improvement there. Actually, it improves. I meant to show that actually is an improvement, a level of service improvement from D to a C. And again, no impact significance. Okay, this is where it gets fun, since I've probably bored most of the people by now, but it's important to see that, again, the with and without project conditions. What I'm going to do now is show you the traffic visual simulation. This is the AM condition, and we're going to start at Rainbow and Palm. And we're going to migrate easterly. Now, sometimes you may think, oh, I wish they would have stayed at that angle. I wish, you know, there's some things you may wish we would stick around to take a look at longer. But what I want you to pay attention to is a couple things. And I'll zoom in right now. I'm going to pause it. I want you to pay attention to the crosswalks. There's people crossing the streets. They show bicycles. It shows the improvements. This is Rainbow Drive. Crosswalks at every intersection. These red lines here denote the signal color. Okay, so that's a red light. These green bars denote the green light. Yes, sir.
Wait, just to clarify, these drawings are showing the improvements that we approved last week, correct? Okay.
Correct. And that showing the 2 lanes of turn, that's correct, the mitigation for Bernardo Shores here. And it also shows all the improvements proposed with the Palm Avenue Master Plan, as I mentioned. Class 2 bike lane in this area, the travel lanes have narrowed, and crosswalks with median refuges and push buttons. So where you see intersections where it doesn't look like there's any cars going, you're thinking, wait a second, why that's not good signal phasing. Look to see if there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, and that's why. Okay, so here we go. And this is, by the way, going to the north on Silver Strand. Queuing of traffic here, that's a heavy traffic route. You can see the queuing of traffic over here, getting ready to go left. This is AM peak. By the way, we have Arnold Torma with KOA Corporation, our traffic engineering consultant, sitting in the front row. He will be able to answer questions. And Greg Shields, our project manager from Project Design Consultants, if you have any civil engineering questions. Green light, red light for the turn, red light for the turn. Bicyclist. We haven't put in the Bernardo Shores bike path yet. It's a future iteration. And again, this is year 2040. Yellow light, red light. Most of the traffic, this is traffic coming westbound towards the Navy Bay, the coastal campus, primarily. Now we're at 7th Street. Crosswalks at every intersection. We have a proposed bus stop in this island right here. We're coming up to the Delaware intersection, at which will be the new breakwater project to the right. You see the morning traffic queuing. Already you're seeing the traffic queuing back to what is 9th Street. Now, although there's a lot of queuing, with the phasing of the signals, most of this traffic clears with the first cycle. Somebody going to Starbucks. And keep in mind, this part of the, I'm sorry, I just messed up. No, I'm not going to. Oh gosh, I don't know if I can, I don't know how I did that. What I wanted to say is this section of the roadway, we're not proposing any change in lane reduction. There is no lane reduction in the whole corridor, but this doesn't have any change in the existing configuration other than adding a Class 2 bike lane in this section of the corridor all the way to 9th Street. It's going to stay in its current configuration. 2 lanes from Rainbow to 7th and sorry, to 9th, sorry, 7th, and then Delaware, I'm sorry. 2 lanes to Delaware, and then 3 lanes from the middle of Delaware to 9th. And I'm sorry, I embedded this in the PowerPoint, otherwise I could accelerate it, and I apologize. I probably should have music. By the way, yeah, we're planning to have popcorn at the workshop for people who want to watch this. So, apologize for not having it today. A lot of the side street geometry has changed, where we allow different turning movements. When we get into the heart of the corridor, you'll notice there'll be areas where we have parking reservoirs, diagonal parking on the rights of way that can accommodate them. And we've also modified the design so that there'll be, wherever possible, no loss of on-street parking on Palm Avenue to serve the businesses. Again, these are new crosswalks. Now we're getting back to where we were before I got trigger happy. We had flirted with the idea of making this a through intersection, but that would have complicated the traffic pattern. And it's not a highly utilized roadway, this one. This is the Breakwater project. This was where the through median from Palm Avenue going eastbound is being eliminated and incorporated into 2 right turn lanes. And again, up until we get, as I mentioned before, nothing has changed about the roadway except for this configuration here, which actually improves the performance of that intersection. So again, you see 3 lanes of roadway today, where there are 3 lanes today, and the addition of a bike lane on both sides is really the only physical change, and the slight narrowing of the lanes. Here we've, as part of the Palm or Breakwater project, there will be a widening of the median and a median refuge here. These are all median refuges so that pedestrians that don't make it all the way across the intersection will have a safe place to stand or wait. No bulb outs at this intersection, as I mentioned, because of truck turning radiuses turning this way and this way onto 9th, or off of 9th. And here we start the local access lanes. 2 lanes of through traffic, 1 lane for the local businesses and local traffic with the share or a shared bike lane. The other proposal that we're approaching at 10th Street, that would become with the master plan a signalized intersection with 4 crosswalks. That is an intersection today that does not have a crosswalk, and during our early studies of the roadway, it's a section heavily jaywalked by pedestrians. As a matter of fact, and I hate to be grandiose, but we did have a traffic fatality at that intersection within the last 2 months. So this local access lane, even with a green light, we have stop signs. And that's the same configuration they use on Octavia Boulevard. It's the exact same configuration. 2 lanes of through traffic on the old Highway 101, 1 local access lane with stop signs so that there's still controlled traffic. So that, and they also have a different speed limit in this local access lane compared to the 2 through lanes. Our proposal would be something like 30 to 35 miles an hour for the 2 lanes and 15 to 20, maybe up to 25 in the local access lane. And here's where I mentioned, wherever possible, incorporating diagonal parking as an additional parking resource. Here we do have bulb outs at the 10th Street intersection to make safer crossing distances for pedestrians. And as you can see, the buses would use the local access lanes. Coming up to Florida Street where the local access lanes end. By the way, these right here, based upon input from both the community and Caltrans, are areas for if a vehicle becomes disabled in the 2 lanes, they can pull out or be pushed into a turnout within the local access median so as not to disrupt the flow of traffic for any extended period of time. Florida Street, as you can still see, a steady stream of traffic coming westbound, early morning traffic, and the eastbound traffic is not as congested. Although it does start to get, again, when you get near the Saturn intersection in the city of San Diego, that also shows some challenges in the future at 2040, both AM and PM conditions. And coming up to 13th Street. And it will end just after this starts to clear the traffic. Okay, that was the morning condition. Now we're going to start at that intersection. Sorry. We're going to start at that intersection and go. I know it's taking a little bit of time. I'll stay off the control so it won't stop. Now we're at 13th and Imperial Beach Boulevard. This is the PM condition. Most of the traffic is leaving or going eastbound. And when you get to the other end of the city at Rainbow, you'll see the coastal campus traffic coming from Silver Strand. So this intersection is not performing at a level below below service. I believe it was E. This is Florida. Here are the turnout areas I was mentioning in the local access lanes.
Greg, if you don't mind, can you repeat what you were saying about the local access lanes and the stop signs?
Yeah. So when this light turns green, and once you enter the local access lane or coming, it's at this intersection at 10th, you can see in the distance, there's a stop sign. So even if the light's green, you're stopping at that roadway before you go. And we haven't decided. Some actually control that local access lane with its own signal. That's been done in other situations, but it's also been done with a stop sign. And the idea is to keep the traffic in that lane not used as an expressway, so that it actually keeps traffic at a calm, sort of business-friendly rate of speed, and it also makes it more conducive to bicycling, a shared bicycle lane.
The reason that I point that out is everybody here knows that I'm not a fan of stop signs. They're poison to our environment and our gas mileage. And if there's any way of using either chokers or any other type of form of traffic calming, I would much rather see that put in.
Mm-hmm. This is, again, the traffic leaving primarily the coastal campus, Silver Strand, and then obviously some of the employment centers that are part of the build-out scenario for the city. And interestingly, you might have noticed that in the Midtown or the mid-block sector with the local access lanes, at this part of the traffic's, the PM condition, there's very little of the traffic is focused in that area. It's as we start to get to the west end where the traffic impact in areas that we're not modifying the roadway with things like a local access lane. All we're doing is adding a bicycle lane and narrowing the lanes of traffic. So keep in mind, what we're trying to do, though, to effectively move the traffic is signal phasing, signalization, and improvements in that area. which, as I mentioned earlier, is an area that the Navy in their EIS has identified mitigation measures at most of the intersections for this roadway in our city is to look at signal timing and phasing, and obviously that would be in coordination with Caltrans if it remains a Caltrans right of way, and if not, we would still have to consult with them for their portions of the right of way. Coming up to Delaware. To 7th Street. I heard a comment about cars going in or out of breakwater, and we've made comments like that as well. It's important to note that the model builds in the ADT regardless of whether they actually show it coming in and out of that development. It does include the traffic volumes that that project would create along the corridor. And we're approaching Rainbow. And again, from this point westward, we're looking at a current right-of-way configuration in terms of the numbers of lanes of traffic. Excuse me, except for the addition of the bike path. Excuse me. I like to call this the Field of Dreams image. As you get towards the end, and the traffic coming from the coastal campus as well as other Silver Strand traffic is stacked up. And again, the only thing we've done differently here is signal phasing and adding a turn lane and crosswalks at this intersection. That's the current right-of-way configuration. Not shown here is a required extension of this turn pocket by about 4 times that as part of the Bernardo Shores project.
Mr. Wade, if I might, when the bicycle path, Bernardo Shores bicycle path goes in, where would people be crossing on bicycles coming through the Bernardo Shores side bicycle path?
They would be right here.
The turn lane turning right onto Rainbow. I noticed that one's much shorter than the one turning left into Bernardo Shores. Is there any reason why that turn lane turning right onto Rainbow couldn't be a little longer? Because I make that turn daily. And
which turning movement are you talking about?
Turning right. If I'm heading
this way?
East. I'm heading east on Highway 75, and I'm turning right onto Rainbow.
Okay, right here.
Right, and so now we have a turn lane. Just one's longer than the other, and was that?
So are you saying this was waiting for traffic at some point?
No, I'm driving 65 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour on Highway 75, heading into Imperial Beach, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, so extending that turn pocket.
Yeah, I mean,
Gotcha.
is that just your projection that as short as it needs?
I don't think the geometry has been finalized. I think we just wanted to have a safer turn and getting them out of the 2 lanes of traffic to mitigate traffic. Yeah,
I could actually see that being a little longer.
That's a good comment.
That way you're not slowing down this east to or west to east traffic, and that way, somebody's traveling at a pretty good clip, the light's green, but now I'm waiting for this turn lane queuing, possibly. Just a thought. Just a thought.
I made the mistake last week of telling Jackie I never get sick, and of course 2 days later I got a big chest cough, so I apologize. Just wanted to wrap this up. I thank you for your indulgence. I apologize. That was a little bit painful, especially when I started it over. As I mentioned, there's a second workshop that's proposed, or planned rather, for January 15th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. We expect it to be as well attended as the first. We'll do everything we can to make sure that it is. The objective of that workshop is to give a project update, to give them the presentation of the traffic visual simulation. I will try to make it more entertaining. Popcorn and soda will be served. And we also want to give the community a chance to participate in some of the urban design element components of the project: street furnishing, trash cans, benches, street lighting, those kind of landscaping, that kind of input we're looking for in this next phase. There's the draft environmental document. It's proposed to be a mitigated negative declaration is being prepared. We expect to have a draft of that by next week. We're looking to circulate it for public review in about February or March, in that time frame. Response to comments will be handled in March and April. And then we'll be scheduling a hearing for a coastal permit for the project and the certification of the MND. Completion of the PSSR, the Caltrans Project Scope and Summary Report, as I mentioned, is expected by the end of June. And there is some discussion about whether or not we should try to coordinate or synchronize, waiting for that document to see what might come of a relinquished right-of-way in terms of dollars from Caltrans, from the state to the city, that might make it more palatable for the city to say, yeah, I think it's going to be more effective for us to take on that roadway. I know there's a lot of questions that have to be answered, but it might make more sense in terms of getting a project through the approval process, because as it stands today, as proposed today, Caltrans would object to the project in 3 very specific areas that I mentioned, most pertaining to the traffic speeds, the local access lanes, and the bulb outs in terms of the design speed that we hope to see rather than what is out there today. So available to answer any questions, or this is your chance to provide input, comments. And again, Greg Shields from Project Design and Arnold Torma from KOA Corporation are here if they need to answer any questions. Thank you.
So the recommendation is that the City Council receive City Council briefing number 4 on the Palm Avenue Mixed Use and Commercial Corridor Master Plan, and provide input and additional comments as necessary. Are there any comments? Input?
Is there any way, I'm sure you've looked at this in every which possible, your bad F to a better F, is there any way that can be changed at all if we're looking into the future that far ahead? Because my crystal ball doesn't look that far, but if you could see that, I mean, is there any way, if we know it's going from F to F and traffic happens, I understand that, but is there any way that can?
I'm going to punt this one to our traffic engineering consultant.
I'm just saying, in the perfect world.
Right. Hi, Arnold Torma with KOA. Indeed, that certainly the context I think we should remember that we're looking at here is, if indeed all of these assumptions out to year 2040 were to simultaneously happen successfully at full economic vitality, and all of these projects occur in addition to the regional growth that's going on, that could be the kind of a thing that we would see. What we might also see, this is forecasts out that far are somewhat speculative, and I think we discussed that a little bit last week with the Breakwater project too. It's one vision. The other thing that could happen is, if indeed around the region those kinds of volumes begin to happen, not just here on the 75 Palm corridor, but happening on other arterials in the region, I think there's other behavioral things that would start to happen with drivers of spreading out their peaks a little bit, having flexibility with their start times and their leave times, and hopefully as is the vision of our regional transportation plan, begin to make use of alternative modes as well. So in that sense, I think take from it this, that we're looking at maybe a worst case, perhaps most pessimistic kind of a thing. And as one gets closer to having to operate a corridor like this, there can be additional things done with the timing, the intelligence of how you work with the signals along the corridor and whatnot. And we've made some assumptions along that regard. But what I think is likely to be the case, as somewhat now, there'll probably be a gateway at one end and the other end, at the 13th, perhaps in the evening coming back, and at Rainbow coming in. And there will be some degree of queuing that is likely to happen. And there will be some delay for people to get into the corridor before we can handle them and process them through, if that's of any comfort to you.
Okay, and then the synchronization is going to happen. Will the lights still have sensors? Because if I'm the only one there at 10 o'clock at night, will there be sensors actually like, hey, I'm over here? We
Yes.
all know that one.
Yes,
right?
there would. As is probably the case right now, what is happening right now is Caltrans is running a very long cycle length on that, and it takes fully 3 minutes. I mean, each time I come here and I'm waiting to make the left turn at 9th to southbound from 75, it just, you know, I could turn the car off. I could step outside, you know, and move around a little bit, take a walk and get back in before that cycle length goes. We've speeded up that cycle. 3 minutes, 180 seconds is a really long time for that to happen. So yes, all of the signals, in fact, they function, they should be functioning that way now. They're technologically equipped to have full actuation. You pull up at 3 a.m. in the morning on a side street when there's no other traffic, you should not have to wait very long to get a green. And we're proposing that what should be done is shortening up that cycle time so that things could happen faster. And in the middle of the night with light traffic, that absolutely would be happening.
Thank you. And my next question to Mr. Wade. I like the presentation much better. Thank you. I like the graphics. What I want to make really notable here is that this project isn't something that we just kind of came up with, correct? I mean, there's been a number of different ways the public have been notified, and the transparency of I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 presentations with one more on the way we've done, as well as 3 more at City Council, including not including this one. So I think it's real important that when the next presentation you do, I think these statistics need to be shown and make it clear that this isn't something brand new that we're doing without letting people know. And I think that's super important. And thank you for making that available for us to look at too.
Thank you. And one, in response to your first question, I wanted to point out, and you reminded me that in speaking with the Navy about their coastal campus, and again, they've been very engaging and very willing to work with us in terms of implementing the mitigation measures. They've also expressed a willingness to seriously consider, if not implement, staggered work hours so that their peak times will not coincide with typical peak commuting traffic. So if they're able to do something like that on a pretty wide scale, that would help considerably in these forecasts. I can't really address the F that we see without project, but maybe there's ways, as Arnold said, we could address that in a different way.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Spriggs.
Mr. Wade, thanks for the presentation. I think one of the biggest issues in the coming year this council is going to face from a I don't know, a city development master planning situation is the relinquishment question. Whether we're going to take over Route 75 when that material is presented to us. And your anticipation, I gather from the report, is that the Caltrans report that's going to provide that data that will enable us to make an informed decision about whether to take over Route 75 or not in the Imperial Beach city limits, the relinquishment question, is in June of this coming year. I also recall in reading the report that, and you mentioned how to harmonize in time that factual consideration with the ongoing further development of detail for the Palm Avenue master plan. Is it likely we can get a delay from Sandag to enable these things to be trued up together, so that if it turns out, for example, that relinquishment is not feasible, that adjustments can be made in the master plan at that point in time, which would change a lot of it, because that is a real possibility. We just don't know yet.
That's an excellent question, and the short answer is, I believe, yes, that if needed, we could get an extension from Sandag. Our grant cycle, we have 18 months from notice to proceed, which the notice to proceed was issued the end of January of 2014. So we have until the end of roughly July would be our 18-month schedule to complete the project. We've already met with Sandag staff about this very issue, and they are aware of it's already caused delay in the preparation of the earlier portion of the study, the TSAE. So they are aware that we've had experienced delays, and they are aware of the situation. Their advocacy was to move forward with the project as proposed, as it was the project, quote unquote, that was funded and awarded the grant. That said, if a relinquishment isn't possible and we have to move forward, I think they'd be more than willing to give us some latitude in terms of timing. How much I can't say, but I think they would definitely be willing to do that. What we would come up with, I can't even predict. I mean, we'd either come up with a plan that's proposed as you see it and doesn't have support unless a relinquishment occurs sometime in the future, or we have to look at some alternatives and come back with those to the community and to the city council. So there's a number of options. I just can't predict what those would be.
I would certainly hope it'd be the second of the two, that we don't just put a plan on the shelf that's not implementable, but that we really do use, and I'm talking about saving some portion of the $400,000 grant funds for Plan B, which is, it turns out that it's financially not feasible for us to take on Route 75 for whatever reasons are yet to be determined. I'm just hypothesizing that alternative, not hoping that that happens, but if that happens, then we don't want all of the Sandag grant activity, including a lot of input from the community, to go for nothing. We want to, I would think we would want to make the best alternative Plan B for how Palm Avenue should be done within a framework that the highway people can accept, and maybe some negotiations would soften some of their strictures that are mentioned here in the report. Once we see that it's not feasible for us to receive a relinquishment from Transnet. So I mean, I'm just Caltrans. I'm just suggesting that we try to keep our options open so that we can come up with something that works as well as it can for Imperial Beach, regardless of what happens one way or the other with the relinquishment discussion later this year or next year.
And I guess I would I appreciate that comment, and the Plan B option has been discussed, and again, under the sort of the advocacy of Sandag and advising the council at the last briefing, I guess I need to be clear that there is no funding in the grant as it stands. It's a pretty thin grant or budgeted items. There is no funding for a Plan B at this point. That isn't to say we couldn't pursue one. The grant is pretty thin in terms of scoped items. As we move forward, I can talk to the consultants about what we can do, but again, Sandag's advocacy was proceed as per the approved grant project. So that isn't, and I appreciate your comments because I'm concerned about that as well. I'd like to see something happen, and that isn't to say it can't. we would just have to, we're going to have to face that funding question. And I hear your comment. I will take it back again to Sandag and express that concern and discuss it with our project team.
Additional comments or questions? I wanted to thank you for the presentation. Arnold Torm and I used to work together 25 years ago, so I know he's one of the more experienced traffic engineers in San Diego, so thank you. And I was, like Councilmember Patton, I was very impressed with the public. I attended the public workshop. I think it was one of the best managed and workshops I've ever been to at Imperial Beach, so I think the public input process has been excellent. I think the team's very collaborative, and I talked to David Alvarez, Councilmember David Alvarez from San Diego today about this, and just wanted to see, we talked about meeting with the city of San Diego to see what they're doing, because they're engaged in the same sort of planning process, right?
Yes. Yes, they are actually, it's a similar grant that we were first awarded to that started this project, that they've been awarded for their segment of the roadway, the highway between our city and State Route 5, Interstate 5, sorry. And they're going to be, I believe they're in the middle of selecting a consultant team, much the same as we did, to start that process. And so I've been in contact with the planner there, who's handling that effort, and we'll plan to be engaged in that. Yes.
Yeah, and Councilmember Spriggs, I think you're right. I think we need to definitely be thinking about what to do, and I think we really need to develop an advocacy strategy with Caltrans and with Tony Atkins, with Assemblymember Tony Atkins, to really see if we can really make sure we get what we deserve and what we need. This is has to be a priority project for Imperial Beach. We can't not do this. So anyway, I look forward to working with the city staff and the council to really identify how we're going to move this forward. Actually, a lot more aggressively than I think, so we can make sure we get what we need. So thank you. We have a comment from a public speaker, Luann Norse.
Hello, I'm Luann Norris. I live at 882 Elm Avenue, and I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. I'm not used to public speaking, so forgive me. But you know, kind of starting with it seems like at the end you guys are all concerned about getting this grant for $400,000, but you know, the city already gave away over $16 million with the corner at 9th and Palm, you know, by the $14 million of buying it and the extra $2 million of moving people and all the litigation, everything that came on. So it's kind of like looking at it on a backward statement, you know, where the money is spent and where the money is coming from. But, you know, sticking to this project, you know, some of the things seem kind of futuristic, and I understand they're looking for a 50-year plan, but you know, they took out 3 bus stops when they took them off of Rainbow, when they made the MTS, when they narrowed the Palm to the beach driving. MTS took off the bus stop on Rainbow, at Rainbow and Palm, and 7th and Palm on the 901. So they've already removed 3 bus stops, but they put one of them back up at that gas station. But if you live up in that area, you have to walk all the way over to the end of the gas station. Now they want to move the bus stop to the middle of the island where nobody lives. What they need is to put the bus stop up at the intersection of Rainbow and the Highway 75, because it puts it back closer towards where people are living at instead of moving it farther away. And if they need 2, well, then they need 2. But sticking it in the middle of the island, that's kind of crazy. And all these crosswalks that he's saying are new crosswalks. A lot of those are already existing, but people don't pay attention to them. And so if you're going to add crosswalks, one thing you have to do is get people to pay attention to it. But by slowing the traffic down with this divided thing to separate the Highway 75 and the local transportation, once you're in that, you can't get back out of it. You have to go the whole extended route. That's going to slow down the bus also, because you've already lowered the bus, the traffic miles per hour, and then you're going to have a stop every so often for each person crossing it. That's going to keep lowering down the bus time. Plus, everybody else, if you're in there, then you're stuck in there. You have no way to get out. It's like being in those separated carpool lane. So, you know, there's a lot of things that still need to be considered about this than what they've already projected. It just seems that there's a whole lot of things that aren't being considered with it. And I know I stuck with the bus stop, but, you know, that was one of the things that stuck out in my mind while you're doing it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you very much. Is there anything else that I need to do? I'm not sure on this. We just moved to the next subject?
Yeah, I don't think a motion is needed. You don't need something.
There's no motion here.
No,
Okay.
I've just given you the next steps, and we'll be back before you in the next couple months.
The bus stop issue, I think, is something that it might be worth someone looking into, because I know sometimes communities don't have much say. MTS does kind of its own thing when it comes to bus stops. But in this case, if it's true that a bus stop is going to be moved to no man's land, that may be something the city may want to weigh in on, on behalf of our residents. I don't know who, would that be a community development issue? Or?
Yeah, we've been working with MTS throughout this project. They've been very cooperative, and they have eliminated a bus stop on Rainbow, and they did move it. And we have looked at an alternative of trying to put it at the intersection of Rainbow on Palm Avenue. The idea with moving it onto the median was there's currently a bus stop there on the Palm Avenue, the south portion, not the state highway, in both directions. So the idea was to create sort of a transit location, so that for people who are transferring or getting on a different direction, that kind of centralize those bus stops. And I think the comment's well noted, because there is a neighborhood off towards Rainbow that has a little bit further to go now. So we can certainly talk to MTS about their future needs and report back to you about what makes the most sense. But the idea of putting it in that median was to sort of congregate, if you will, the bus stops into one sort of transit plaza, if you will. One other comment, and I appreciate it, the local access lanes are always an area of concern and discussion. I meant to mention it during the visual simulation. You can weave in and out of those at the intersection where the brakes. That is an allowed movement of traffic. So, and again, one of the reasons we decided not to extend them was to create, again, just to keep it to those two blocks, having the 10th Avenue intersection to either merge into or out of, and a 2-block area we felt wasn't all that difficult a situation if you get quote unquote stuck in there. One of the things I've noticed, I actually watch vehicles during the simulation and think, well, shoot, if I'm in those 2 lanes of traffic, I'm going to scoot into that local access lane and not wait in traffic. Well, vehicles doing that end up making it through the roadway about the same time as all the other vehicles, with the other traffic controlling mechanism, so that all the traffic is effectively moving through that roadway at pretty much the same speed. That's just the way it works during the peak periods. That's not to say that would happen in the non-peak periods.
We have one more speaker slip. That's from Claire Buckley.
Claire Buckley, 632 Dahlia. I think it was either Councilman Spriggs or Patton that mentioned the Plan A, Plan B, and the funding for that, and whether you would lose it if there were changes. Would you lose? I don't know what Plan B means. Would you lose all the funding if you just make minimal changes? Or are things like the local access lane already considered Plan A, and making any changes would be Plan B?
We don't really engage with the audience members, but I think the
I'll go to the planning meeting.
The question of clarification goes right to the point that I think the mayor touched on, and I touched on as well, and that's aggressive negotiations with Caltrans. And following the Caltrans report on the feasibility of relinquishment, I have a feeling that since they want us to take it, we may have some leverage at that point to work with them on some of these considerations. Although if we take it as a relinquishment, it could mean it means that we don't have those restrictions. If we don't take the property. It means Transnet's continues to pay for the maintenance of Route 75 and the upkeep of it and the capital costs and that sort of thing. And we then are, that's the plan B. We don't meet the financial benefits to Imperial Beach are outweighed by the costs of taking Route 75. And therefore, all those restrictions that they put in place that say we can't have those side roads, and the center lanes have to be a certain width, and all those other restrictions that are in the report, we avoid them by taking it over, but it may not be feasible for us to take it over. And if we don't take it over, they still have it. And we can't do any of those things anyway. And we don't really have the ability to get them to change their mind, since they're going to keep the roadway. So that's all I was trying to say.
Yeah, Councilman Spriggs, what might have been missing from the conversation that we didn't talk about earlier is that probably about a year ago, the city council authorized us to meet with Caltrans and determine whether or not it makes sense for the city to have ownership of the road, so that we can determine what the road will look like, how it's designed and whatnot, or whether it should remain a state facility. And the state has different design criteria and different things that they would or would not allow. And we didn't mention that at the beginning, but I think that's the discussion, is whether or not a lot of the things that you saw in the presentation tonight may not be legal under Caltrans, that may have to be, would only really be able to be implemented if it was a road that was under local jurisdiction, under the city's jurisdiction. So I appreciate the question, because we didn't make that point real clear at the beginning of the process.
And I'm sorry, I apologize for not making that distinction clear. One example of this, as Mr. Levine just pointed out with respect to the bus stop, is that when MTS proposed to remove the bus stop on Rainbow, we requested and MTS supported the installation of that bus stop on Highway 75 next to the Silver Strand Plaza across from Bernardo Shores. Caltrans rejected it because they didn't have enough right of way. They didn't want it. They didn't believe it didn't meet their standards. And so the only right of way width that could accommodate it was to put it down by the beachside gas station. And that's why the design we show actually expands the roadway in that location to make it a functional bus stop with complying with state highway standards. So that's one example of state highway standards not complying with what needs to be or would like to be done at the local level, and having to basically accept it. Now, I will say that of the 3 items that they've identified as, and there is an exception process. Caltrans does allow you to go through a design exception process where items don't specifically meet their criteria, and they go all the way up to Caltrans headquarters in Sacramento for review. They've already opined that 3 elements would not only not meet state highway standards, but would be ineligible for a design exception. That doesn't mean, though, and I think there's members of our team, the consultant team, that believe we may be able to be more persuasive, if you will, in getting some of those design exceptions through if an accepted relinquishment or a relinquished right-of-way is something the council cannot support for whatever reason, whether it be economics, costs, maintenance issues, what have you. There's more than just a plan A and a plan B. I think there's a plan A minus a plan B. I mean, there's options here. Exactly. There's a better plan B.
May I ask one more question? Since my minute and a half got used up. I have a comment/question that I was going to save for the public hearing. I don't know if you want to know about anything ahead of time. My concern comes from 9th Avenue pocket lanes to Rainbow Drive. And I really would like to discuss it. You're planning already to put a light in, or that's part of the master plan, Palm and Rainbow. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand the
I know, I
questions.
shouldn't be addressing the council.
You know, what I would say is we do have a web page dedicated to this project, and you can email comments anytime and we'll take them. You may want to do that, or just call me and we can talk about it.
Great, thank you. All right, with that, no more questions or comments. We'll move on to Resolution 5.2, number 2014-7535, approving the calendar and setting the time for city council meetings for the year 2015. City Manager Hall will give the report.
Mayor and council move through this rather quickly. As you know, we schedule on an annual basis when your regular meetings will be. They are typically the first and third Wednesday of each month, beginning at 6 o'clock for your regular meeting. We only anticipate that we would need to cancel the first meeting in January 2016, as well as the second meeting in December of 2015. So with that, we would ask for a motion to approve your calendar to be the first and third Wednesday of each month, except for the second meeting December 2015 and the first meeting in January of 2016. And set a time, right, that's correct. And right now, your current time for starting your meetings is at 6 o'clock in the evening. That's correct. And with that, any deliberation of the council, and let us know, we can make the necessary changes to the resolution if you choose to change either the dates or the time. One note, we typically cancel the first meeting in September as well because of a conflict with the California League of Cities. This year, there is no conflict with that meeting, and so we would be able to hold our regular meeting in September.
Yeah, I would like to entertain a motion to adopt the resolution number 2014-7535, approving the calendar and setting the time for city council meetings for the year 2015. With 6 p.m. as the time of the meetings. Would you like to take a vote? Great, thank you. We'll move on.
Motion carried unanimously.
The next item is item 5.3, annual city council representation assignments for 2015, and city manager Hall will give the report.
Mayor and council, in accordance with our policies of the city, I think you're aware of the city council assignments that are given out by the mayor. The way our ordinance reads is that the mayor will serve the city on all regional boards and commissions unless otherwise determined by the city council. I had a chance to sit down with Mayor Dedina and have him put together the list that is in your packet as the proposed council assignments for the coming year. And with that, you do need, I believe you would need to approve that by a motion, but it is not a resolution. They're simply assignments, and so it's just we would need a majority vote to be able to make those council assignments.
Mr. Mayor, may I make one other statement for the record too? Per California Code of Regulations 18705.5, public officials are allowed to vote for themselves on appointments if the city goes through the process of posting a form. It's called Form 806 on the city's website, which lists each position and each potential stipend. So the city did post that list in accordance with state law on December 5th, I believe, and they will the list will be updated after council takes a vote. So for that reason, no council member has any conflict with respect to voting for themselves on these. Thank you.
And now we can review and discuss the mayor. Any other comments?
No, thank you.
Review and discuss the mayor's city council representation assignment list for 2015. Any comments or?
I do have a conflict, a personal conflict on the South County EDC, which I've served on for some time, and it's a Tuesday morning, and I've just realized that that conflict is where I couldn't best serve our city currently. I do know Mr. Spriggs has served on that and has made many connections, and I feel that he would probably would be a good replacement for that particular assignment. So do I make a motion on that, or do we just, what do we do on there? I'll make a motion that Mr. Spriggs takes over South County EDC as primary.
again, a lot of this is a little bit of protocol. There's any number of ways. That was a good question. There's any number of ways to proceed on that. The city council could make a motion, of course, to approve the proposal of the mayor. If you wanted to make any differences of that, maybe what you could do is gather all the suggested changes and try to make one motion, or we literally could go through and make individual motions on each one of those, however you guys wanted to do it. So you could have a full discussion, try to get it in a form that can be supported by a majority of the council, or we could move through it individually, and certainly that's at your discretion, how the mayor and council choose to move forward.
To me, it would be prudent just to do it individually, because there may not be, this may be the only one. I don't know.
Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. I too had some revisions. First of all, I wanted to say to Mayor Dedina, I can see that you really put a lot of thought into this. I think you tried to be fair. I think that you tried to spread the assignments around. I appreciate that. However, I am our senior sitting council member, and this will be my 9th time going through this. So I have some insight that I would like to share with my colleagues, and these assignments are not going to define our legacy as council members. It's the work that we do here on the dais that will do that. And I sat down and went through these assignments, and I removed emotion from it. I looked at us individually and thought of our strength, thought of positions that we have held on these assignments, relationships that we have built, possibly positions that we have never held before and maybe would like to now at this time. So again, colleagues, if you would just indulge me, I like Mr. Patton, I'm just going to maybe throw my suggestions out there. Maybe somebody can keep a tally of what these new suggestions are. And please, Mr. Mayor, do not think that it was in any way that I took it that I was not happy with what you had done. I can see that you put a lot of thought into this. So I'm just going to dive into it. Obviously, some of them, South Bay mayors, I mean, of course, I have no change to that. One of and here's another thing that I think we need to think about that maybe we haven't done, we've all been a little bit guilty of, is that when we have an appointee to one of these positions, I think strategically, as a group, we need to be saying to our appointee, what are you talking about at those meetings? What are you voting on? What are you bringing back? What's the best thing for Imperial Beach? And I would like to see us really stretch ourselves, really work our relationships and our connections that we make, either whether it's MTS or at Sandag or South County EDC, wherever it's at, and come back and really collaborate amongst ourselves and say, hey, I need you to make a phone call to somebody to push this item forward or to get some consensus going. So having said that, I'm just going to kind of dig in a little bit. And one that I think that we haven't been paying enough attention to is the League of California Cities. This is, I've been on that. I've been our appointee to that, our former mayor. We both went to those meetings. And it's amazing how somebody will perceive what's happening or, position, and somebody else doesn't. Plus, I think that when you're at the table and there's more than just one person from a particular city, people sit up and pay attention to that. So on some of these positions, I'm certainly encouraging us, those who have the time, to make the time to go to these meetings. If you're the first alternate or second or whatever, you can go to those meetings. You're not precluded from not going. I would like to propose a change in that, if we could, and have Mr. Spriggs be our primary at the League of California Cities. I think that with Mr. Spriggs' acumen, I think he would be better served than just being the alternate. There's a lot of voting that goes on. There's a lot of legislation issues that are brought up. There's a lot of There's a lot that happens at the California League of Cities. So I have that proposal there. On the Bayshore Bikeway Working Group, Mr. Patton, there hasn't been a meeting of late that you haven't talked about riding your bike, you and your family riding your bike. And to me, it just makes a lot of sense for you to be our appointee to that, the Bayshore Bikeway Working Group. And again, you know, I'm expecting colleagues that, you know, maybe that we can work through this, that we can have our suggestions, we can have our dialogues. And one of the things that I think we have spoken about as a group is that we have a committee that goes through these appointments. And before we ever reach this point, some of these discussions have happened. On the Chamber of Commerce liaison, I would like to propose Mayor Dedina as the first alternate to that. You have shown a great interest in our business community. I am excited about being the liaison to the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber and the Business Improvement District are certainly experiencing a renaissance, and I would like to be part of that. On the South County EDC, we've already had, I think, a suggestion that Councilmember Spriggs would be our primary. On my own, I had thought that Mayor Dedina would be our alternate there. I think that there's a learning curve, let's face it. And I think that our mayor needs to be at a lot of these meetings. I'm not saying you don't know a lot of people already, but there's a learning curve, and we all went through it. So then on Sandag, I looked long and hard at this one. And due to positions that are currently held, I'm talking about policy committees, it would be my proposal that we make Councilmember Bilbray our primary, our first alternate, Councilmember Patton, and our second alternate, Mayor Dedina. I think that it's important that we have a mayor as one of those alternates in case anybody else can't be there, that we have somebody, especially a mayor, be there. Those are my suggestions. I'm open to, well, I guess we all as a group are open to any other. But I could put that in the form of a motion if there's no discussion.
Is there a discussion?
Well, the Bayshore, the Bikeway, I don't think they have meetings very often, but I mean, I'm fine doing that or not. I've done a lot of research on the Sandag spot and freed up time that I didn't think I had. And I thought that I would be a good fit for that primary position. With a count, and then I'm gonna maybe counter your thought with putting Councilmember Bilbray as first alternate, since he does have many connections and knows many people, and then either Spriggs or Dedina as second alternate.
I would just discussion. I think it's time that we really look at how we do these assignments. I think it's time that we look at how long these assignments last. I would like to also propose that anybody who is on primary, first, or second this year, then the next year, the two of us that are not would be on that. I think that, and I spoke about this at our last meeting, that I've been our MTS representative, and finally now Imperial Beach is poised to have somebody on the executive committee. That's exciting news for us. However, I think that the time has come that we don't get pigeonholed into these positions for so long. I believe I would get much more out of being on this council if I had the opportunity to serve in different areas. I think that after 4 years, we should all have the opportunity to serve and not get so pigeonholed in. So I would just like to throw that out there for consideration.
And can I add one, just to piggyback? You know, I think it's really important that when these assignments come up, if we had a workshop prior to this and we all sat down and we did what we're doing right now, not here. Right now is not, I don't think so. You know, unfortunately, it is a place currently today. But I think in the future, I don't think this discussion and going back and forth is as professional as it probably should be. And I think if we had a workshop and we were all able to discuss this and kind of hash this out, and then we brought it up here and we're all like, okay, I think we're all happy with it, then we move on. But I guess we could table my thought, or at least look at a way that we could do this in the future differently. Kind of agreeing with what you're saying.
Mr. Hall, we are planning a retreat. Could we ask then that the handling of this be placed on that retreat agenda? I think we're all in agreeing that we'd like to talk this out amongst ourselves. I mean, I certainly want to weigh in on some of these appointments, and not just these appointments, but community appointments as well. I would like to see all of those applications. I would like to sit down and converse with everybody and say, you know what? I think this is the best person for that job, which is kind of what we're doing here right now. And you're right. I agree with you, Mr. Patton. This discussion, I would have appreciated it much more at a different time.
Noted, and I think that would be a great topic for the retreat. Among some other things, during this transition time, it's a great time to be talking about those things. As you know, we followed a different process in the past, but we had different chemistry. This would be a really good time now to sit down and talk about how we come together and work together as a group. And when I say we, I'm not included in that, but how the council comes together and makes these deliberations and these decisions. And I've noted that. I've had a chance to talk with Mayor Dedini. He's very supportive of having a retreat. I believe that all of you are as well. Again, whenever you have change in chemistry, I think it's really good to sit down and talk these things through. So you bet, that's well noted, and I will make sure that that's on the agenda.
In these appointments, are any of these appointments time sensitive that have to be made now so that people show up at January meetings where there's expected to be someone representing Imperial Beef?
The only organization that has asked us to have our assignment to them before the end of the year would be Sandag. But in reality, if you don't make a decision tonight, the reality is we just won't be represented until we've made that assignment. There's no law or rule or anything like that that says we can't delay it, but that's the one that will proceed without us if we don't make a decision.
We will be represented because I'm the alternate.
Well,
so I would attend that as alternate unless the council decided otherwise and report back on what happened. But I don't think we should have an empty seat at Sandag. That's the most.
They would need a
important,
motion to that effect, though. These terms expire at Sandag after the year, so you would need a motion.
Okay.
And I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize, but there's that one actually expires at the end of the year, and they need a new resolution from us, or a new.
Well,
motion.
I think my primary point wasn't about me. The primary point was that Sandag is a very important regional body. We just heard tonight, how important they are regarding one of our major projects and how it ties in with a major decision we're going to have to make during the year. There are lots of other issues as well, and we need to have someone there. So that's the key point. We don't want to have an empty seat in the Sandag meetings that are coming up next. So if that is the one, I know the Metro JPA, which is another important body, I think they have already determined not to have a January meeting. Maybe there's some other jurisdictions that are having similar discussions. So I don't think that one is critical for a January fill. If we want to hold this over to a retreat discussion, I guess it would suggest that we have the retreat as soon as we can.
Well, December 19th, Sandag is having a very important meeting. Who would go to that one?
If we don't have a representative that at this point, you know, if you want to participate in that meeting on the 19th, it's my understanding, and I had a quick conversation with Gary Gallegos, we would need a motion from the council. On December 19th, I would have to double check. The current, it may be Councilman Spriggs on December 19th. I think it expires December 31st. I don't want to give away my children on that. I need to call and double check that. Sure. Yeah, I do. I'll give away my kids on that one. You can have them, but they're gone. I'm an empty nester. But no, let me double check on that.
If I may, part of the reason why I was suggesting either Bill Bray or Patton in these next 2 years is we don't know what's going to happen at the end of those 2 years. We know Mr. Sprague is here for 4. I'm here for 4. Mayor Dedina is here for 4. We have opportunities after that to serve on our Sandag appointment. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm not in favor of not making an appointment tonight, though. I'm not in favor of pushing this off into our January meeting. I'd like to close our business with this year.
And I somewhat agree with you. Just dragging this on is dragging this on.
I think this is very interesting because, you know, I thought I heard a consensus that we need a more fulsome discussion about qualifications, roles and responsibilities, transitions, who should be on deck. And now I'm hearing a sense that, you know, no, let's go ahead and decide on these appointments tonight. To me, it's puzzling. So I don't know, maybe one of the other council members or the mayor may have an idea about the best way to proceed on this, but it seems to me that we've got two different, vastly different approaches. If Sandag is the only issue between now and the end of January, we can come up with a temporary solution. If it's more important for us to deliberate on who should be in these positions, I will say that I would rather support the appointments as suggested by my colleague, Councilman Patton, than the major changes suggested to this lineup by my colleague, Councilwoman Bragg. I don't think we should make such major changes without more of a discussion, quite frankly.
Clarification, I apologize if I appeared to be puzzling. I did preface my statements that I had really spent a lot of time thinking about this, and based on, like I said, relationships that had been made, potential conflicts of interest possibly, time constraints, I'm very confident in my decision. I really don't see the need to postpone this into a January meeting.
Just thank you, City Manager Hall. Appointments to Sandag Board of Directors and Policy Advisory Committees, they must be made annually by January 10th or when vacancies occur. So we do have some time.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear. You had asked the question. The question I don't have. The question I don't have an answer to is December 19th. We got a copy of their policies. They sent them to Jackie, but what isn't clear that I can see is when they expire. I believe it is December 31st. I would need to double check that.
City Manager, can you read that phrase one more time?
Oh, you bet. The mayor and council of the city of San Diego and the governing body of each other member agencies will make their appointments to the board. Each member agency shall conform to the appointment of its primary and alternate board members by sending a written letter to Sandag, clerk of the board. All such appointments shall go into effect immediately upon approval by the member agency's governing body, and it says annually by January 10th or when vacancies occur.
Now, did a vacancy occur?
Well, yeah, Mayor Janney will now be a vacancy.
Right.
Correct.
So is it if and when, or?
Well, it's annually or when a vacancy occurs. So we have to do it every year. Even if you keep the same people, we still have to send in each each member agency has to send in a new letter.
But
So
we
it's
have
annually.
we have an alternate, so
That's correct. Or it depends on how you read that. We have a vacancy as of 5:30 tonight. When Mayor Dedina was there, we have a vacancy. Mayor Janney's no longer on the board.
Partially, I was looking at it that way, but it depends how you look at it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It just reads annually or when vacancies occur. So I think you
So
can
that's
read
why
into that
my
either
question was, did a vacancy occur? And that question, the answer is yes, a vacancy has occurred.
Correct.
As of this evening.
Does it matter in defining what a vacancy is? Does it matter whether the designee, the board member, is sick and can't make a meeting, or no longer in office, in terms of whether or not the alternate, which under Sandag's own rules automatically steps in? Does it really matter? We're talking about a limited time period here of the primary not being available for one reason or another, in this case, not elected, versus ill or out of town or something else.
does not make that. I'm sorry, does not make that distinction. Just again, I'm sorry. These aren't our policies; they're theirs. It just says annually or when a vacancy occurs. You guys will probably have to determine what that means to you. That's literally it. I can make a copy and pass it out. It's that simple.
So I think then, if that's hearing what you're saying there, that we have two choices, or three choices. We make all the appointments now, or we wait until we have an early retreat in January, and come up with our preferred lists, and then confirm it at a council meeting, and at the same time designate who should be the Sandag representative for those meetings if we're not comfortable with the alternate playing that role. So I don't see how we can do it. Those are the two options. We either wait until January, but then we got to fill Sandag, either by vote or by operation of the alternate, or we work through all the suggestions tonight.
Well, I think it's very important that we determine, because if the what if scenario is that you should have appointed somebody tonight, and then the 19th comes up and they said you should have sent somebody, or you should have appointed somebody, and we didn't. Is there any way you could find that information out tomorrow, at least, if we end up not voting tonight, and find out that information?
Yeah, in fact, if directed, I could try to make a phone call right now.
I'd like to direct you.
Okay.
Because I think it's very important that we.
Excuse me, Miss Mayor, I can go try to make a phone call.
do we want to recess while we do that, or? Yes, why don't we take a little recess?
Okay.
We can do that. Thank you.
They're not on.
What is Sarah? Madam Clerk, do I call the meeting back to in order?
Yes, please, and I'll take roll.
Okay.
Following. Councilmember Bragg?
Here.
Councilmember Spriggs?
Here.
Councilmember Bilbray?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Patton?
Here.
Mayor Dedina?
Here. Okay, just to restart this, City Manager Hall, did you want to update us on your conversation?
Yeah, I wanted to let you know I put in a call to the executive director of Sandag on his cell phone. I would guess he wouldn't be in the office right now, and he did not answer. So I don't have any new information for the city council. The one thing I will say, when I had a conversation with him some time ago about council assignments, the information he gave me again is that Sandag gives a lot of deference to this body. This is the governing body of the city of Imperial Beach, and this is the body that chooses the representatives for Sandag. So my guess is that it may come back to your decision of how to read this policy. I don't know that he'll dictate to you how you select your representatives to Sandag. That's our decision. And placing it on him probably won't get us very far. He'll probably kick it right back to us and say, just decide who you want to have represent you. That would be my guess. So even if that's by motion, if the city council chooses that they want to just, because of the election, just want to move to the first alternate, I still think it might be wise. That's what Jennifer and I were just discussing. It might be wise to do that by motion. Otherwise, you may want to make your decision of who's going to do it reading, well, there's a vacancy. So when a vacancy occurs, we've got to decide. The reality is I know I'm talking over myself, but I don't think they're going to answer that question for you. That's going to be a question you're going to have to answer for yourselves.
Well, I almost feel like I'm peeling off a Band-Aid right now. And, you know, it's torturous. And whether it's tonight or it's 3 weeks from tonight, you know, this needs to be done. We need to keep the city moving forward, and this is one of the processes that we do to keep the city moving forward. In the past, I could only talk for my experience. This has been done in one sitting. This is Councilman Bragg. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. You know, if we could hash this out this evening, I think we'd all be able to walk out of here a little lighter, not knowing that we have 3 weeks or however longer to think about this and dwell about this and lose sleep about this. Just a thought.
Mr. Patton, I would agree with you. I think that in deference to our new mayor, that he would like to go home tonight, knowing that his colleagues could come to consensus on his first meeting. I think that sets the tone for many meetings to come. I would just like to push forward, and you know, we can go one by one. We can take it as an entire slate with the amendments that were made. You know, maybe we need to come to consensus on that first.
Well, look at number 1.
Wait, excuse me. Yeah, I think if we could just, I'm not sure if we have a motion to do that, or
I'd like to make a motion, and so that now I'm hearing from 2 members that they want this to be resolved. I'd like to move that we adopt the list as noticed to the public, with the exception made by Councilmember Patton on the basis of his conflict there, and that we would substitute Spriggs for Patton with South County EDC.
But my other substitute was Bill Bright for Spriggs on and as first alternate. Just because of the connections that he has.
I won't support that motion. And this is the kind of subject that we would get into in a retreat, because I also have lots of contacts and experience and time being retired from the university now to fill in the event that the primary member can't do it. So I guess.
Well, on that note,
Councilmember Bill Brady, do you have any?
I'm going to make the motion that we adopt Lori Bragg's recommendations with the amendment that Mr. Patton made to the Sandag.
Well, we have two motions and no seconds.
Exactly. There was a motion on the floor. Was there a second?
I made the
Mr.
first
Sprague.
motion that we adopt the list as it is with, I'd forgotten about the second change that Mr. Patton made, with the first change that Mr. Patton made, and not the second change. That's my motion.
And so we would need to see if there was a second for that motion. If there's no second, then that motion dies and we can take up another motion.
Motion failed
I'd like to
for
make a
lack of
statement
second.
as the newest member of the team. And first of all, I have no problem waiting. I'm actually a big believer in constructive engagement. I think it might be good to talk about this a little more. So we, especially with an outside facilitator, I won't lose any sleep at all, honestly. I have a lot more things to worry about. But I think this is something that I think you guys need to think about. I did hear everybody except Councilmember Patton, Bilbray, talk about the potential and how it would work for having us discuss at a retreat. So that's not something that I'm worried about, but and it might be more productive, and we might actually in the long run feel better about it. So anyway, those are my 2 cents. I would also support the idea of doing that and then just having a temporary solution to the SANDAG issue and appointing somebody who's the person who's the alternate at Spriggs right now, so that we can just move forward and attend a meeting and then have this discussion and have it in a real productive way with the facilitator. I think that always helps. So that's my feedback. But ultimately, I think that you guys need to decide what we'd like to do. I don't think there's any hurry on this.
I'm going to go ahead and keep my motion to go ahead and adopt Lori Bragg's, Councilmember Bragg's proposal with the alteration that Mr. Patton made, or the amendment, I should say.
I'll second that.
Which one? Is it just the South County EDC?
Do you mind if I review what I think your motion was and your motion with her? Just so I make sure we understand. The notes I took were that on the California League of Cities, that you would substitute Mayor Dedina for Councilman Spriggs.
Correct.
And that on the Bayshore Bikeway, you would propose Councilman Patton.
Correct. That's the primary.
And on the Chamber of Commerce, you would propose Mayor Dedina as the first alternate.
Correct.
South County EDC, Councilman Spriggs as the primary, Mayor Dedina as the first alternate.
Correct.
And on Sandag, Councilman Bilbray, the primary, Patton as the first alternate, Dedina as the second alternate.
Correct.
And then your motion included Councilman Patton's suggestion that Councilman Bilbray be the primary, Councilman Patton be the first alternate, and Mayor Dedina be the second alternate? Did I catch that
No,
right?
no. His amendment to what Lori or Ms. Bragg had stated was he stay as primary. He stays as primary. I stay at first alternate, where I come in as first alternate.
Oh, okay. Then I had that wrong. I apologize. Thank you for letting us go through that to make sure we had. But I think. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second.
Is that clear? Jackie, have you got that? Are you okay?
For the Sandag board, is it Patton, Bilbray,
And Mayor Dedina.
and then Dedina?
That's my understanding. Is that correct?
And then do we have a second? Okay.
I call for the question.
Is there discussion?
Would you like to discuss that?
Yes.
Maker of the motion, I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote, which I am able to do.
Isn't there always an opportunity for discussion after a second?
You can vote on the call for the question, and if the majority decides that it should be that call for the question, essentially the discussion is ended, then the majority has decided discussion is ended. So you can go ahead and call for a vote to see if the council wishes to end the discussion at this point, or if the majority wants to continue to
Can I
discuss.
ask for a comment before the call for the question?
that would be up to the mayor.
Absolutely, we can have a comment before the question.
I think in deference to the mayor's preference, we should have a more thorough discussion of this. I think we should give him that opportunity to hear what each of us has to say in more detail, in a more appropriate environment. And I think that is the best approach, considering the discussion that we had earlier on this same topic about the need to identify the appropriate people for these important positions. We also would benefit from the ability to understand what these different positions are for those who have not served in them before, and what skills and qualifications are needed for them, and what's in the best interest of Imperial Beef. So all those things to me are not served by rushing to a vote on a bunch of changes in a new process with a new mayor tonight. So he has suggested that we wait, and that's what I think we should do.
Is there other discussion?
Oh, then, Counselor.
If there's no more discussion, then you can call for the vote on the motion and the second.
Okay, please vote. Motion carried by the following votes. Ayes, Patton, Bilbray, Bragg, Noes, Dedina, and Spriggs.
Okay, item number 5.4, resolution number 24.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Can we go over those
That's a good point.
results
Good idea.
again slowly?
Yeah, that'd be very good. And Jackie,
Another
just
problem.
stop me when you get confused. Okay. South Bay Mayor and Managers Committee would be, the primary is Mayor Dedina. Mayor Pro Tem Bilbray would be the first alternate. The San Diego Division, League of California Cities, the primary would be Mayor Dedina. First alternate would be Councilmember Spriggs. The San Diego Division of the California Cities, the Legislative Subcommittee, primary would be Mayor Pro Tem Bilbray. The first alternate would be Councilmember Spriggs. The League of California Cities would be Councilman Spriggs as the primary. First alternate, Mayor Dedina.
That's Coastal Cities Interest Group?
Yes, I'm sorry. I should have read the whole title. Coastal Cities Interest Group. Metropolitan Transit Systems Board. The primary would be Councilmember Bragg. First alternate would be Mayor Pro Tem Bilbray. The San Diego Association of Governments Board, primary would be Councilmember Patton. First alternate, Councilmember Bilbray. Second alternate, Mayor Dedina. The Sandag Shoreline Preservation Working Group, primary would be Mayor Pro Tem Bilbray. First alternate would be Councilmember Patton. Sandag Bayshore Bikeway Working Group, primary would be Mayor Pro Tem Bilbray. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Councilmember Patton. The alternate would be Councilmember Spriggs. Chamber of Commerce Liaison, primary would be Councilmember Bragg. The first alternate would be Mayor Dedina. The Metro Wastewater Commission would the primary be Councilmember Spriggs. The alternate would be Councilmember Bragg. The Job Corps Liaison, primary would be Mayor Dedina. The alternate would be Mayor Pro Tem Bilbray. South County Economic Development Council, primary would be Councilmember Spriggs. First alternate would be Mayor Dedina. The City Council Ad Hoc Committees of the Youth Ad Hoc Committee, which was established in 2013 but is no longer there, would be removed. And the Sports Park Ad Hoc Committee has already been established and are meeting now on the third Mondays of each month.
Right. Maybe I'm mistaken, but not Sandy.
That is correct.
On the San Diego division or on the League of California Cities?
League of California Cities. Excuse me.
Oh, so both at the state level and at the San Diego level?
That Councilmember Spriggs would be our primary, and that Mayor Dedina would be our alternate.
Okay.
So could we just have a vote on that? Because I don't know that was that reflected on the first vote? I don't think it was.
No,
Okay.
we did not have Dedina listed as the first alternate.
So I'm going to go ahead and make that motion.
We need a second. Oh, the original vote did not include Mayor Dedina as the first alternate for the San Diego League division. As it was proposed, it would have been Spriggs as the primary and Spriggs as the first alternate. So I get it, right. We during your suggestions, you did not.
Okay.
You did not provide an alternate. Yeah.
So
switched.
So just to clarify my motion, I make the motion to make Councilmember Spriggs as the primary and Mayor Dedina as the alternate.
No. Okay, the system's ready. Please vote. Mayor Dedina, is your touch screen working? Lock screen? There you go. Thank you. Motion carried by the following votes. Ayes, Dedina, Patton, Bilbray, Bragg, Nose, Spriggs.
Before we move on, just I definitely think it'd be great. I think Councilmember Bragg, what you talked about in terms of understanding why we're doing these assignments and what our strategic objectives as a city is, I think would be very important. I think that's something we need to discuss at the retreat, and I think that's something we need to really make sure that we have goals and objectives for each committee, and that we report back on the committee hearings. When we very explicitly, and even if we can do a written, I'm not sure people do written reports here, but something that's in the public record so that we're very clear about what we're doing and actually what we're getting out of, what are the strategic objectives that we're achieving for the city when we're on those committees. So anyway.
Yeah, and I think I like that, and it's safe to say that when you do represent the city at a committee, you represent the city as a whole, and you're not representing yourself and your personal vote. Is that correct? City Manager Hall?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah. I think I've got good notes for a discussion at the retreat, absolutely.
Coming up with some different processes. And we talked about this a little bit, but I think we absolutely have to have some different processes, either through workshops or through our regular council meetings, where we have an agenda item that talks about upcoming meetings and what's on those agendas and what position we want our representative to take. Otherwise, it's very difficult to institutionalize what we're talking about. You know, to make sure that there are, even if as we give guidance to staff with a lot of broad discretion, but at least the council has not taken a vote, just discussed it, and there's a consensus around what we're asking staff to come back with at a future agenda and on a future agenda. it's kind of the same thing. So there's a sense of what the council is interested in. If there's an agenda item, Sandag, Metro JPA, League of California Cities, whatever, that could impact the city of Imperial Beach, rather than reporting on it afterwards, which is better than nothing, of course. A good example would be, when I've gone the last 2 years as representative to the League of California Cities, when there's been a resolution that is going to be voted on by the voting delegate. None of these has directly impacted Imperial Beach, so it really hasn't been a big deal to present that proposed resolution to the council for a discussion. But if we're going to follow the kind of practice we're talking about, that would have been the case. It would have been the case that, because these resolutions are known well in advance, that would have been presented to the council. We would have had a discussion. This one, about better policing for environmental and law enforcement reasons of illegal marijuana growers in Napa County. That's what the resolution is about. Okay. We would have had a discussion about that. So that when I voted with the others unanimously to support the league's position on that, it would have been with the understanding that was our position instead of just being my own judgment.
I agree with all of it. That affect Imperial Beach per se, then I think that discussion is well worth it ahead of time.
Right.
Actually, when I was our appointee to the California League of Cities, every time there was a vote, every time I was going to vote, I was a voting delegate. I made the council aware that was on our agenda. We discussed it amongst ourselves. We gave direction to me that this is how you are going to vote on this. So without a doubt, like Mr. Spriggs was saying, it was in the record. It was memorialized that's how this issue was going to be addressed and how it was going to be voted. And then when you come back from the league, you present whether that resolution passed or not. So I think it's critically important, Mr. Spriggs. I think you bring home a very good point.
Good, and with that, we'll move on to item 5.4. Item 5.4 is a resolution number 2014-7539 awarding a public works contract to WIT City Hall Public Area Flooring Project and appropriation of amount not to exceed $25,000 from the Facility Maintenance Fund to project. City Manager Hall will give the report.
Mayor and Council, as you know, we are looking at replacing the carpet in the public areas of City Hall, basically the main hallways. It's in poor condition. As we began to remove some of that carpet, some of the tile was disturbed, and the adhesive that keeps the tile down, it does contain asbestos. So at this point, the best scenario was to eliminate the current flooring, remove the asbestos, and replace the flooring with a ceramic tile that will look like hardwood flooring. As you know, we had a spill out here of our water. You're probably smelling it tonight, of our water. So we decided not to replace it with carpet, but go with something that's a little bit better in a public building in case we have leaks and other things. And so what we're asking for, or what we're informing you tonight, is that we would like to take some money from the facilities fund and complete the asbestos removal and replace that carpet with ceramic tile in the hallways, and try to do that during the Christmas furlough when there aren't people in the building, because there will be asbestos removal. And so we just wanted to bring that to you for your approval. We've made some arrangements to make that happen. At the same time, we're also trying to improve the safety of the front counter that we have in this office. As you know, that was done some time ago. We talked with Chief Clark. Right now, that is not defensible space, but some of the changes we're making that office will make it a lot safer for the people that work that front counter area. So we're looking for a motion of support to be able to make those changes to City Hall. Something that the council has talked about before, just so you know, we are including some of the display cases for historical documents and some of those things that have been, I think Councilmember Bragg was kind of a leader in that regard. So essentially, I think you're familiar with the project, with the exception of perhaps Mayor Dedina, but I think he's even been around the office the last few days and seen some of the things that we're trying to do to get ready for that to happen during the furlough. So again, looking for adoption of that resolution that essentially is a budget amendment that allows us to move money from that fund balance to be spent on updating the flooring.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, just one quick question. The improvement that you're doing for safety, I fully understand. And is that going to be open space, or is it going to be like a double glass window like at a bank teller?
There's been discussions about the best way to do that. What we have done is we've made a wider counter, and it'll have room underneath, so it's a lot harder to get over top of. Eventually, what we'd like to do is at least have a pull-down screen for security. But we don't anticipate that there will be a glass panel there. We don't handle money in the front office like they do down in finance, and that's why they have a glass panel. They do a lot of money transactions that we don't do in our office.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have that personal,
correct,
view, and not so much touch, but just that glass kind of divides,
correct,
and that we want to get away from that division.
I think we agree.
Yeah, thank you.
Any questions or comments? I would like to entertain a motion to adopt resolution number 2014-7539, awarding a public works contract to replace the flooring in the City Hall public area and appropriating an amount not to exceed $25,000 from the Facility Maintenance Fund to complete the project. Can we take a vote?
Motion carried unanimously.